Welcome everyone. Welcome David. Here we go once again. We are most delighted to have you, David, and curious what you will tell us about today.
Yeah, let's talk about Europe today. Yes, here is a picture, estimates about 30 years ago. I think that's Slobodan Van or something, Milosevic. I think that's his name, from Yugoslavia. And people say it's a propaganda photo or something where he's giving out food or something to war refugees. Now, as we can see, the people at that time, 30 years ago, even in Yugoslavia, um, half the people still dress like this. Yes? Yeah? Have you received the picture?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, today, if we go to Yugoslavia or to Serbia today, then what we will see is that the people look totally different. You know, it's a modern place. So the thing is, we'll see that what do you call it? The people dress modern, and they look totally different. When we see the people there, they've got headscarves. Either those people are Orthodox Christians or, you know, Catholic Christians from the Croat side or Muslims. I'm not sure which one. I think in that picture, maybe it's the Bosnian Muslims, but they're from Yugoslavia. Now, today, if we went to Yugoslavia itself today, just 30 years later, in 30 years, just one generation, it's changed so much that the women look like this. Can you see? It's a very big difference, of course.
Sure.
Can you see it?
For
Yes.
sure.
So
Westernized,
these
yeah.
things are are very important. It's like when we see this, then we can realize and understand more about the world. It's like, for example, we can turn on and say Christianity existed. Yes, the Bible existed, but the thing is, does it mean that people were actually Christian like we were told in our history books? Yes. For example, here is women in Macedonia 100 years ago, but if we look at um, girls in Macedonia today, yes, we will see a very big difference. And let me just in Macedonia, the thing is, what we have in Macedonia, that even the thing is, what many people don't know about Macedonia. Some people say it's quarter Muslim. Some people say it's half Muslim. Some people say it's one third Muslim. But here, here are modern Macedonian girls today. And the thing is, these are Muslim girls, but somebody will turn on and say, hey, don't they just look like French or German girls or anything else? This is actually in the Muslim quarter of Skopje city, if you want to call it. I've walked on this road myself. I've seen it. So the thing is, the people look different. Today, Macedonia would be classified as a Christian country. Yes. So these things are very important to actually have a look at actually what religion was and how the world was just 100 years ago. Now, this is, for example, um, uh, this would be a middle class home in Bulgaria or Macedonia or in Romania or in
Middle
Poland
class, you
a
say?
hundred years ago.
All right, yeah.
Middle class, yes, because the wind, the wind will not blow this house away. It's got a roof on. For that time, that's amazing. Yes. So what the hell is going on? Why was the world so poor? And what's going on? Let me just show Bulgaria. Here are the people. Now, what we know is that the world in 1900, most of the world was illiterate, they tell us, because of these modern languages. And in modern languages, of course, because these languages are fake, that is why people were illiterate in these languages. They could
Right.
not speak them or read them or write them. So now the thing is, this information, is in my book, Adolf Hitler or Nazi Germany for the background. But today I'm going to go through some other topics. If you don't know the background, yes, then I can't do anything to read out the full book. Yes, some people don't know, but from European races, there's I think 100 million Muslims around the world. Yes, many people seem to think that maybe they're just Arabs, but they're not. Yes, there's Muslims from European races that we can clearly see. These people are European. Yes, and they're Muslims. Yes, this is in Macedonia in Skopje City. Yes, I've been there myself. Yeah, I liked walking through this road. Yes, yeah, that country is going through lots of disputes at the moment. It's a long story. So now we see a similar thing in Yugoslavia just 30 years ago. Now, the reason for this is because it was economically poor. And also, what many people don't know is that in the early 20th century and mid 20th century, in many places around the world, they told women, take your headscarf off in schools by force. Now, today, I'm going to show Cyprus. Now, if you go to Cyprus today, what you will see is amazing places. Like, for example, Cyprus in Greece, you'll see these kind of things called theaters, Roman theaters, and they'll show you all kinds of ancient sites. Like, look at this. Yes, they'll tell you that these are, thousands of years old and things like this. And they'll say, we got the remains there. And if you're walking through it, maybe you'll think it's history, things like this, and ruins of some type of thing. And you'll think, wow, this is so ancient. It must be ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But let's have a look here. Now, here is Cyprus, women there in the 1950s. Yes. Oh, by the way, most people in Greece couldn't speak modern Greek 100 years ago in Cyprus. They learned it only in the 20th century, the modern version of Greece. So now what these people are doing, these people are actually at this site, and I've just sent you the picture of this Roman amphitheater before. Here is the same place. Yes, around 1950. There is no greenery there, just a few trees that have been planted, and it looks like a desert, mysteriously. A desert? What's going on here? How can this look like a desert? Yes? How can it look like a desert region? So what we see is that if you have a good look at this place, here is the background. They've just planted a few trees. Today there's more grass and everything, but before this greenery was not there. Yes, people go to Cyprus for Ayanapa, Ayanapa. Yes. And so the thing is, they're going to say these are ancient Greek or Roman or whatever, and you can see everything is brand new in the 1950s. Yes, everything is brand new, and here are women working at the site. Yes, they're like slaves, and what they will tell you, they just found this place, they're digging it up. Yes, and so these women, you can see they're very poor. Yes, it's not it's same like the Middle East is today. Yes, and things like that. So the thing is, it was a totally different civilization. But here is what it was before yesterday, and then here is the same place when you go there today. Yes, and they're telling us these places are ancient, and then what we will see is that when they just dug this place out, everything looked brand new, and you'll see the people working there. Yes, and they're clearing everything up, and many of the things are brought on trolleys, like the mini rail tracks that you can see. Here is some more rail tracks. They're bringing things to the site, taking them out. Yes, this is described in more detail in my book, Ancient Greece Did Not Exist. If you've not read it, I can't go into it. And some people who've read it, so, because they've never seen any of these videos, there's many videos around that you will see that they're building these places. They're using modern machinery and everything to help them. Yes, they're building these places, and it looked like a desert region. Now, how can Cyprus look like a desert region at that time? Many parts of it that there's no vegetation, a shortage of trees. Yes, In the same way, Morocco is the same way today. 80 years later,
Right.
70 years later, and they're planting trees there. So have a look. They're putting all these slabs of bricks there and everything. But historians will say, no, they just found these places. Yes, so they brought all these things, and the women are working there too. Yes, a lot of them couldn't speak this so-called modern Greek language, and you will see people there who are actually working to put the base and then put all the poles together. They're using modern tools that were made in Europe by machinery or in some other places. And you can find these things online. Yes. And then they will say, we found, you know, ancient Roman, ancient Greek things there. We found coins and everything, amazing things. But many of these things were only made in the 19th, 20th centuries. Yes. And they made it look, they use these local people who did it today. Many of these people can't do these things, but in the Middle East, they still can because they're economically backwards. Now, if you were in Greece or in Bulgaria 100 years ago, yes, Romania, Russia, you would see camels. Yes, you would see
Hmm.
camels. Today, you can't see these things. Yes. So the thing is, there is evidence that they built these places, and
So just to
also
be clear,
the
this camel here on the picture is in Greece or in Cyprus?
they're in Russia. They used them in World War One and Two. The Russians were fighting the Germans with camels. You can look for it online. And more information of this is actually in my book, The Last Crusade. Did you not read that book, The
Well,
Last
I
Crusade?
did, and I'm aware of you mentioning them being used before. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
clear
you can find pictures
where they
online.
are seen on these
There's many
pictures you
pictures
sent.
online.
Hmm.
Yes, the Germans using, the Russians using camels, World War. Let me just show you.
Because
And
what I'll
the
just have
thing
to
is,
mention here, I'm sure, or in this case, I guess you're aware of the very famous and popular cigarette brand called Camel. Have you heard of it?
yes,
But what is on the
yes.
picture? I'll show it here in the video. You have a camel and you have the pyramids, of course, giving the impression that this has to happen in Egypt, and it's both, yeah, it's just a nice propaganda picture, let's say.
Of course. What do you call it? They're going to do this, but let me just show you. What do you call it? At the Battle of Stalingrad. How could there be camels? Even you can see the background of Stalingrad. Many of the fields were still in desert conditions. Today, you'll see lots of green fields there and everything. This is very important because the serious question is, when did we cultivate these lands? This is in
Hmm.
Stalingrad. Yes. So the thing is, this is in Europe. How can this be possible? Yes. What do you call it? That they're using these camels to fight. Let me just show you the German army and other things. The Germans used them too. Also, what do you call it, in World War One and Two, because the tanks. There wasn't many roads. Yes, believe it or not. Yeah, like we've been told. So the thing is, how could these camels have been in Northern Europe? But camels also go through can live in the cold. But there is another thing. So now, when we look at what here is Bulgaria, Romania, Poland in the 1950s and 60s. The people did farming like this, and the thing is, even then, there was a shortage of pigs in Eastern Europe because it was more poorer. And the thing is, what do you call it? People just had sheep and things like this. And then the thing is, the church, it was only the elite who could read the Bible, the elite. And here is an example that many of them had Bibles at the time. Yes, in places where they've got no printing machines, no nothing. Yes, and this is from the 1950s in Greece, and they've got printed Bibles. How could they have got hold of these printed Bibles? But as time went past, by the 1960s and 70s, Greece and all these other places, Cyprus, they changed. 70s, I mean, and 80s. Let's have a look at what the women started looking like when they went to school. They were told, take your scarves off. But now let's look at that place. Yes, many people don't know in Cyprus. Many of these women were used for mining. Yes, what does it say here?
Native girls working at the asbestos mines, Troodos, Cyprus. Hmm.
Yes, they were working for Western European and American corporations. That's what they were doing. And because many of them were very strong, yes, they were working in mining, so the women could get involved in a lot of other things, like if there was a war or anything. Yes, and as you can see, the desert conditions in the background, those same hills, if you go to them today, there's green grass and everything. But today, if you go to Romania, Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria, Russia, the women look like this, modern. Yes, it's because in the 50s and 60s, 70s, they were told, take your headscarves off. Now, in the Middle East, because they're still poor, yes, and they've kept the old tradition, they're still dressed like this. Yes. So the thing is, and the schools haven't managed to force them to take it off yet, because there is something there called Islam. So now the thing is, if many of these people couldn't speak Greek, yes, or Spanish or Italian, my books explains this. If you read the Hitler book, then you will find that what do you call it? The majority of people in Italy couldn't speak Italian 100 years ago. In Greek, they couldn't speak this modern version of Greek. In Russia, they couldn't speak this modern Russian. They went to school and they learned it. Now, when they went to church, they were just told, hey, this is the book of God. The priest just stood there and said a few prayers, spiritus, blah, 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 in a foreign language that people couldn't understand. And they thought they're just praying to God. So the thing is, that's how it survived. And then when they got a bit modern and people read the Bible all over Europe, they turned around and said, hey, this is not our book. That's what happened, and people gave up Christianity in 5 minutes. Now here is the pause, Raphael. In this pause, you can play the video.
All right.
Okay?
Aphrodite's Island, magically rich in the treasures of ancient yesterdays. Treasures which 7 years ago lay buried, unsuspected in the sand. The city of Salamis. Greeks and Turks live uneasily side by side round this hidden city they're now digging out of oblivion. The sand came in handy for sandbags at the roadblock down the road, but these local people always thirsted for this workaday peaceful life. Two years before the British left this island of love turned to hate, they started the diggings that have yielded these incomparable discoveries. And today, the British are not altogether unwelcome. The island is changing again, learning to forget its hatreds. The recent past is being buried, as the remote past is dug up and re-echoed among the Greek craftsmen of Nicosia, working copper as their ancestors used to do. They've grown olives and all sorts of fruit in Cyprus for longer than anyone has written harsh history. Though last year the crops were unpicked because of fighting in many of these groves near Kyrenia, the Cyprus port just 41 miles away from the Turkish shore. There's the scent of lemons in the air, figs too, and pears, almonds and sesame. Here you'll get sweet lemons and bitter oranges, as well as the bitter lemons that Lawrence Durrell took as the title of the book he wrote at Bella Pais, Contrasts. In the country, the sheep share the market day bus. Clashing Cypriots never quite forget. St. Paul came here with his fellow missionary St. Barnabas, who gave his name to this monastery where 3 brother monks are as picturesque as the icons that one of them paints. The peace of God and the fighting there's been seems to belong to a different place and epoch.
As you've seen in the video, yes, in the video, the person who is speaking is saying, hey, we've just found this place. No, they haven't just found it. Everything looks brand new there. You can see they're bringing things there. The women, they probably gave them a few tomatoes every day, or a few vegetables, or a piece of meat or something. You know, these people worked like slaves, and the currency, these people didn't understand it. Yes, until the modern schools were built, and the next generation knew the modern economic system, and the next generation knew these modern languages. Yes, so the question is, what was the religious system of these people? Who were these people? Why were they living like this? How did they get to these places? Why was there a lack of vegetation in these places? Yes, and then of course there was a pathetic comment by somebody who looks like they an Islamist or some stupid comment, I call it. They're giving their own religion a stupid, pathetic name that many people are sick of it. That they will just turn around and say, hey, the Quran says this, the Quran says that. Same like everyone knows, the evangelists will say, hey, the Bible says this, and the Bible says that, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. We're talking about world history and what the evidence can show. We're not interested in, according to what your translation and what your meaning of the Bible or the Quran says, based on dictionaries that some people have wrote. Yes, and so we don't even know what many of these books actually say. 10% of the meanings, we can't get it out. Hebrew is another invention, same like Arabic. So now let's have a look at the so-called, why was Europe, yes, a lot of Europe without trees and without vegetation. Many people already know this. Yes, now those who don't know this, they can study this in their own time. Yes, but let's show some examples of how the world can change. That from mining or from other things, yes, the world can turn into desert conditions. Yes, and we as humans, we plant trees and we change the landscape. We're doing this all the time. This is just some examples in the 20th century that we change the landscape very fast. Yes, from mining or industrial things, and we change the world according to our needs. Yes. So the thing is, many people, they could do screenshots and do Google image search or Google Lens, and you'll find these places that the world looks different. Yes, that even here, that this is Scandinavia. Now the trees look tall somewhere in the north of Europe. Now this is very scary. Yes, and have a look. What do you see there, Raphael? What can you see in this picture?
Well, on the first one, there is no pictures on, there is no trees on the roadside for one.
Yes. Yes, so the thing is, we planted these trees. Why were there no trees? How long have these people lived there? Do you see? This is a serious question. So what was the world's population?
So this
These
would
things,
suggest that these areas, if they look like this, have only been recently repopulated. Otherwise, people would
yes,
have planted trees before. Hmm.
or they weren't populated at all.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So now mining, many people don't know we're doing so much mining because of the motor industry, and look at what we're doing to the landscape. Yes, we do. So when they talk about global warming, yes, there is some things that people won't agree with. Yes, but let's just take a look at some of the things. Look at what we're doing. Just to take out, keep 5 or 2% or 3%. We found iron or some other mineral. We're
Right.
breaking into the entire landscape. So now let's have a look at Europe and America. Yes, in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. How deep is the snow? That building is what you call it, about let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 8 meters high. Yes, to the bottom of the roof. Can you see how deep the snow is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and even on the roads, when you're clearing the snow and it piles up like ice, you can see it's taller than the people. Yes,
Right.
this is what the world was like 100 years ago. Now, what people don't know, that we've actually changed the environment and the landscape because there's that stupid, pathetic idiot, just a dog, yeah, saying flora and fauna and whatever, using intellectual words, trying to say, hey, David doesn't have flora and fauna. Go to hell. Yeah, it's because you have not had a look at the landscape. I looked at several hundred landscape pictures around the world, different cities, because I'm trying to understand how they put the trees there, the greenery. Now is just one place in England. Look at the chimneys. Now I'm going to go through a few others, and you're going to think, what the hell is this? Now here is what the world was only like, in Europe. Just 50 years ago, just a bit more than this, 70 years ago, all the way from the 1870s till the 1970s, for 100 years. Do you see how many chimneys there? Can you even count? It's too many. It's a
Yeah.
headache. You have to concentrate. Now, I want you to imagine 50 years ago, 100 years ago, all these chimneys burning coal throughout Europe. Coal, steam, and all these other things. God knows what they were burning. Just have a look at this. This is just in England. I'm just sending Industrial Revolution, and we're talking there's thousands of these throughout Europe and America. Life was like hell. Can you imagine living through here? So what it did, it reduced the sunlight. It reduced the sunlight. It made it colder. Yes, it made it so much colder. And the thing is, it was throughout Europe and America, Japan, and other industrialized areas. And some places in India and other things, we have these things in every place in England, France, Germany, Holland. It was a joke. Can you see this? Can you believe this? Can you imagine if you had to live then?
Yeah, seems horrible.
Yes, it was. So that's why the world that we built, yes, when there is a dispute, like let's say Israel and Palestine, that before people think of, insulting somebody at protests or doing something, small things, protests lead to conflict and then wars. That's how many wars started in the past. Let's not destroy what we built. It took us a long time. Those people who worked, many of them were children. Yes. So let's have a look. Just look at this. Every town and city throughout Europe and America, it's a joke that people are living in houses around that time. That's why they had to give up many babies. So many of these people who are turning around saying, what happened to the children, blah, 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 and that's why a lot of the photographs in the skies, some of them, they've cut them out, but on many of them, you can't see the sky. That's why in China, yes, in China, you can't see the sky, but in China, it's not as bad as this. What we had in Europe before the 1950s and 1960s for 100 years was a joke. Can you see this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you believe this? Every area, Vienna was like this. You just name it. It was a joke throughout Germany and everything. So the thing is, it was a total joke. I don't even know how to tell you. So then there is these pathetic people who are turning around and saying flora and fauna. We changed the landscape. We made Europe colder. Now Europe is getting warmer. Yes, they're telling us what their reasons are. But if you're going to stop putting all these gases in the air, then there's going to be, less of this smog and less of whatever and
Right.
less of this pollution. So, of course, yes, it's going to get warmer. Yes. So now the thing is, there is somebody pathetic. I just call them an idiot and a dog and a joke. Don't come back. Why? If you watch another video, go to hell. You people keep repeatedly coming back, and then on purpose you're putting something there. Why don't you even use a little bit of your brain and go and check? Why don't you? Instead of putting a pathetic comment, you have to think that that's going to affect many of the people who read it, and they're going to be misled. They're going to be misled. Throughout Europe, we can see, even in Spain, many of the mountains, yes, look like Morocco. Yes, that we see in Morocco, that I've seen it in the last 20, 30 years going there. They're planting trees like crazy. Places that were just deserts have now turned into, like, just looks like, Italy or Switzerland, that there's so much greenery. Yes. And, there's so much life there. It's like, the life just came out of the blue from nowhere. The land has come alive. Oh, if you're going to speak about the Quran, your Quran says this. So how can you comment and say, hey, when David says this and that, it doesn't match this pathetic flora and fauna? Yes, I'm speaking like this because that person put a comment using difficult words, knowing that half the people who read it are going to think, hey, this must be an intellectual. Yes, sir, this person has got an intellectual point. It's pathetic dogs like that who have made all these problems, yeah, whereby, yes, they're religiously motivated, that they've divided the world, and religion is actually hurting people. It's actually hurting people. Yes, Raphael, it's hurting
Yeah, well,
people.
with the modern forms of it, I cannot disagree. Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, of course, it's hurting people. The thing is, and nationalism and all these things. And the thing is, the thing is, if people did a bit more research, common sense, and then investigated things, then after that they will come to a conclusion. Hey, there are things we know and things we don't know. That's why Professor Anatoly Fomenko pointed out that what do you call it? Yes, Europe was a bit more united. Then they had schisms. He calls them schisms. Yeah, but these disputes arose because some were genuine, but they had a big mouth, and then because they couldn't understand certain things in scripture, and others were people who were trying to say, no, I think this means this. I think this means that about the Virgin Mary, or I'm declaring it means this. I'm making a big revelation that nobody knew. Yes, when there are things that are not clear, that are going to cause disputes, and those people are pointing these things out because they want to stand out and things like this, and it's just caused what do you call it, suicide and murder in the past. So what we have to think is, when we look at these pictures, we have to think what the people went through 100 years ago in Europe to make it beautiful. We cannot risk our civilization collapsing over pathetic disputes, yes, that nobody can understand or explain without investigation. Yes. Eh,
Indeed.
yes, yes. There is no way. Yes, and it's like, I'm so grateful. Manchester is beautiful. Very, very often I turn around and think, hey, the people worked hard. There were orphans. There were many things. These children who were doing mining. I'm walking in beautiful streets. Like I'm in Manchester, we have shopping malls. They're so beautiful. Sometimes I turn around and think, hey, the people who built it, how did they build it? The people before them, they didn't enjoy it. I'm enjoying such a beautiful life that, believe it or not, I am so grateful that when we look at these pictures of orphans who were doing farming, and today we can just go off machinery. I mean, the thing is, how can we not feel for them? Just because they're not here today doesn't mean that we should forget and not feel for them. Yes. So the thing is, they went through, and their families. Many of them had to give up children. Other children were stolen by the so-called fake wars in the 19th century and everything. It was just so terrible. It's so terrible. Then we've got people who are coming along who turn around and think, what do you call it? Yes, some religion or something, or their principle counts. We've got civilizations to defend. Yes, we've got to defend our way of life and stay calm. It's like here we have in the 20th century. Yes, people burning villages, kidnapping the children, and then selling. That's in World War One. Let's have a look at World War Two. Scorched earth policy. Yes, that they just burnt everything. It was part of urbanization. Many people say it was part of their scam. It's because many of these villages won't give their children for the mining. So the thing is, they were just kidnapping children, selling them. The church was involved in these things, and then we've got these children who are working in factories. They're not here today, but the thing is, what they built, we cannot let something destroy it for no reason. And somebody's going to turn and say, it's my history, it's my principle. Oh, this is from God, this is the truth. Excuse me, calm down. If you've got something to say or show it with evidence. If there's something that you don't know, Don't go out there propagating it and saying, this is the way, or my book religion says this, my Bible says this. I mean, how can some sick people sit there and say, we want an Armageddon just because the book of Revelation says it? Have they not learned the lesson just 100 years ago? Yes, that there were children in factories and in mines in Canada, in America, in Denmark, in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, in Ireland, in Scotland, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Italy, in Spain? Have they not realized these things? Do we want to destroy our current world system? That is why I've turned around and said, hey, this is not about destroying the new world order or new world system. It's about, if you don't agree with certain things, improve it, but do it in a sensible way. Improve it, and if you want to fight to improve it, do it in a peaceful way. Oh, that's why in Judaism they say shalom or salam in Islam. Yes, you do it in a peaceful way. Yes, and in many protests, people are jumping up and down. What did they achieve with the 9/11 protests? Nothing. Stop the war protests in Iraq? Nothing. Yes, stop the Israel and Arab wars in 100 years of protesting. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. So sometimes you've got to turn around and think, hey, yes, let's do things peacefully. Yes, because the only people who are going to lose out is us. It's our civilization. It's our world. Why would we want to destroy it? Yes, you see, Raphael?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's move on. Okay. Now I've explained that what you call it, yes, the name Palestine came from Polishstein, from Poland. Yes, before then, the name Palestine or Philistine or Palestinians or Palestinians or everything was a common term throughout Europe. Yes, that Palestine was in many places in Europe, by the way. Really? And then the evidence shows that one of the first Palestines was actually Rome in Italy during the Renaissance. Do you know about this, Raphael?
No.
Yes, it's very shocking. Yes, the Vatican, Rome. Yes, and of course, that's why they let this new Palestine be called Palestine, because this is part of their project. Now let's go through all the information. People will have to bear with me, and then we'll slowly go through it. So have a look at this. In early medieval Poland, well, they're going to say early, but more like the Renaissance, Palatinus was next in rank to the king. Philistines or Philistines. They were the chief commander of the king's army, or they were the main soldiers. Yes, and it was supposed to replace this title came from the replacing of another name of another Palatine. Yes, and Poland, each they had many Palatinus. They're putting the Roman thing Palatinus, or it's Palestines or Philistines. Yes, so we had them throughout Poland. Eh? Poland again? Yes. So Poland again. So now Poland. So let me just send you the next page. Yes. Let's have a look. And somebody will say Palatinus is not Palestinus. Okay. Yes. So the thing is, the chief commander of the king's army. Poland had in every village or every big village or every city, it was called a principality or principality. Yes, and they've given you a fake history saying it was the Kingdom of Poland divided or feudal, things like this. Yes, so they were saying there was no prince to rule on behalf of the king, so they were independent principalities, or they've given a new name, voivodeships. Yes, but the thing is, they were palatinates. Yes, so or Palestinates, and somebody will say, why is he saying Palestinates? And notice the chief military commander is connected to this. Yes, so notice
Right.
this. So now let's go to the modern so-called Palestine or Palestine. Yes, in the so-called Middle East. Now look at this. Yes, Go down to the 5th line and start from official documents.
Official documents released in April 2013 by the State Archive of Israel show that days before the establishment of the State of Israel in May 1948, officials were still debating about what the new country would be called in Arabic.
Pause. Pause. Okay. Now, if anybody has a look, yes, at the time they were planning to bring all these Jews from Arabic countries, the Jews from Baghdad, the Jews from Syria, the Jews from Egypt, the Jews from Tunisia, the Jews from Morocco. They brought maybe around 1 million of them, the Jews from Yemen. So those people spoke Arabic. So now in Arabic, it's called Palestine or Philistine. You see? So they weren't sure what were they going to call it, the state of Israel or Philistine. So keep reading. What the new country should be called in Arabic?
So Palestine, Zion, or Israel.
So they weren't sure what they were going to call this country. So now what happened?
Two assumptions were made: that an Arab state was about to be established alongside the Jewish one, in keeping with the UN's partition resolution the year before.
So in other words, in simple words, the Arabs would have called this country Palestine. So therefore, they turned around and said, hey, we will call it Israel. You see? Yes. And you see, so this means the Arabs didn't originally call it Palestine. They were trying to decide what the Arabs were going to call it also. You see? And then they weren't sure what they were going to call Israel. They were even thinking of going to call it Herzliya. Yes, and that so the thing is, and don't forget, last time I showed you that almost everybody over there, they couldn't speak Arabic and they couldn't read and write Arabic. Even today, the majority can't speak this modern Arabic. Yes, a newspaper called Palestine was mysteriously formed in the early 20th century. This newspaper was printed on British and French machines. They've given it a fake history saying, oh, it was an Arab newspaper. The locals don't even speak this Arabic language. And then when we have a look at who opened it, they've given a bogus history. Yes. The thing is, they're saying this man was called Isa or Jesus, and he was in the College of the Brothers Lafraize in Jaffa. Yes, some, Christian school. Because, of course, none of these schools were there. Yes, because none of these schools were there, and it is known that these people didn't know the history of the Crusades or anything, and they were illiterate. Because they were illiterate, they didn't know this modern language. They didn't know this modern Arabic. They couldn't read or write this modern Arabic at all. They didn't know the meaning of the words, the meaning of this Arabic language. And the words were invented by the Europeans, and they put the dictionaries there. Then they taught it to these people in school. And then they opened the printing presses. They brought the machines from Europe, printed the libraries, everything. Yes, all the books, newspapers, everything. And in case somebody is going to dispute it, no, this standard Arabic, yes, is not, which is supposed to be old, and it's disappeared for 1,000 years. Yeah, they say it when missing for 1,000 years, is not anyone's native language and has not been for 1,000 years. Yeah, and they have their regional languages like Egyptian, like we've got German. Yes, German, you could say, is a version of Arabic. You could say French is an Arabic language. Yes, because the Egyptian language is different from this standard Arabic. Same like German is different. Yes, and so the thing is, modern standard Arabic doesn't differ so much from the language of the Arabic Quran, but they put the meanings there. So now if the people cannot read and write, yes, what about all these Muslim history books that we've got there, that they're telling us they've got thousands of manuscripts and all these things? They put them there, saying that the Prophet Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl and all these stories and all these other things, the history of the Crusades. The local people didn't even know any of this history. They learned it slowly in these schools, and now it's become official history. Yes. And so the thing is, in case Wikipedia is not enough, it's in the Times of Israel. Yes, I like this newspaper. It has a lot of information that before the establishment of the State of Israel, they weren't sure what you call it, what to call it in Arabic. At that time, not everybody spoke Hebrew. Yeah, only the young generation were learning it in school, and the rest of them came from what do you call it, from Europe and from the Middle East later. You see? So, and then they decided in the end that they were going to just call it Israel. Here, I'll send it to you. Here is from the Times of Israel. You can read the second to the bottom line. What does it say, Raphael?
It says Zion and Zionist already had a pejorative meaning in the Arab world. Calling the country Zion, quote, would cause real difficulty for the Arab citizen in the Jewish state.
So in the end,
In the end, they opted for the most straightforward option, Israel or
Israel.
Israel.
Yeah. So that means they didn't even know what they were going to call this country. Yes, you see. And let's have a look. What do you call it? It's well documented, even in the 1990s. Look at this. Even by the end of the 1990s, only 50% of Israeli Jews could speak this new Hebrew as a mother tongue. Only half by the end of the 1990s. Do you see? And the others spoke Arabic or other languages from wherever they came from. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
dialects or wherever they came from in Europe. Yes, you see? Yes,
Yeah.
can you see it? Yes. So, what do you call it? Let me see. Let me just send the next. So now let's see the suspicious history of Poland and Palestine. Let's go through more of this origin. Yes. So now the largest castle in the world, or the largest palace, is actually the Teutonic Palace in Poland, Zamek Malborku. Yes, Zamek Malborku. You know this castle?
I don't think I'd heard of it, no.
Yeah. Well, it's the largest castle or palace in Europe. Now, now let's have a look more about this palace. Um, Let me just send it to you. Yes, more about this palace. And what do we know about this palace is that they say during the 13 Years' War, Prussia, Poland became, what do you call it? This castle became the homes of the Polish monarchy. They're calling it monarchy. We don't even know who they were. They were just elite or the people in power. Yes, and it became the people in power used this as their main seats of residence for Poland until 1772. Now, this place must have been very important if it's the biggest castle or palace in Europe. Whoa,
Mm-hmm.
you see? How important do you think this place is? How much power do you think they had there?
Well, if architecture is an indication, then it should be very important.
Well, it's not just the architecture, it's about the size. I will go through it in a minute because you can have a lot of military there, but it doesn't need to be beautiful. Okay, yes. So now it's the largest medieval castle. It was the seat of the Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights. The Teutonic Knights are just like, they're just soldiers who worked for your dad. You know who your dad is, don't you,
Mm-hmm.
Raphael?
Mm-hmm.
We all know our dad, don't we? Daddy, is the Pope. Yes, yeah,
Right. Mm-hmm.
yes, yeah. They worked for Dad. Daddy was proud of them that they've got this very big castle there for their military order of the Teutonic Knights. Noticed it's called Tatanic Knights or Titans, and Eastern Europe was Tartaria. Remember this. Middle
Mm-hmm.
Ages we're talking about here. So now what we are told, yes, is that during the Middle Ages, yes, that there's this strange Mongol invasion of Eastern Europe. Yes, and they integrated much of Eastern Europe into their Mongol empire. Yes, there were savages raping women, this, that, but we don't seem to find no, Mongols in Eastern Europe today. So what was the job of the Teutonic Knights who worked for Daddy, for your dad and my dad? Yes. Or how it says in the Bible, I'm going back to your father and to my father. Yes, yes. Well, anyway, they worked for Dad, and the history that they've told us is that what you call it, Eastern Europe, the Baltics, was pagan. This is what they're telling us, and the Mongols invaded, and these people were not Christian. So these people, let me just show you now. So if the people are not Christian, yes, yes, do you think they converted them? Well, what we seem to think is many people imagine that what do you call it? These people, what do you call it? Were friendly people, and what do you call it? They're working for the Vatican. They've gone to take the word of God. Yes, they're so nice. They're so kind. They're so peaceful. But the truth is, yes, they were just like, an army. Yes. And they
Hmm.
turned around and said, hey, if you don't convert, you're going to die. This is who they were. They were knights. It's a military organization. They were not there, yes, to what do you call it, be peaceful. And mysteriously, at the same time, yes, Daddy's got his headquarters in Poland. Yeah, the dad's there. He's got all these men, and they're killing people. Yet these Mongols from Russia arrived to fight against them. Yes, what do you think is going on? Were they Mongols or were they Eastern Europeans fighting, refusing to become Christian? What
Second
do you think
option.
is the true history?
I'd go for
Yes,
the
of
second
course.
option. Yes.
It's not too difficult to actually guess. So what do you call it? Yes. So they forced people, like Dad said, kill him. Just burn their villages, rape the girls. Do anything you want. Yes. Oh yes. And at that time, Eastern Europe has got all these gold coins everywhere, and they've all got Arabic on them. Yes. So the thing is, you're going to find lots of gold. So what do you call it? Yes, I'm reading this out. They've been commonly known, yes, as the Teutonic Knights. Maybe that wasn't their real name, but that's what we're known. Yes, they were a military order for supporting the Catholic rule. Now they've told us it's in the Holy Land, but they're based in Poland.
Hmm.
They forced conversion and forced, in Northern Europe, the Baltics, Petersburg area, southern Sweden, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland. That's why in Poland we've got all these churches that's mysteriously got skulls and bones, inside the churches. Now, I've explained this a bit more in my book to show, what do you call it? Yes, Poland. Yes, what do you call it? The Vatican took over, and they killed the people. So that's why, and that's what their real Christianity was, skulls and bones. So, so what do you call it? Yes, when we look at, they weren't just fighting in Eastern Europe, but in Western Europe, what we call Germany. Yes, remember, Poland is the center of Europe. So the tribal chiefs, notice their tribal chiefs. As I pointed out, Central Europe had different principalities. So sometimes they call them tribal chiefs, things like this, who remained in Prussia. They became vassals to the Teutonic Knights. In other words, do what we say. Yes, that the people must obey this. And this is the same story. Yes, it's the Vatican is launching these crusades into Germany during the Middle Ages and during the Renaissance. Yes, can you see this? Vassal states Israel's got the vassal state of Gaza and the West Bank settlements. You can't go out of here. You got to do this. You got to do things like that. That's a perfect example today. Yes. So now the thing is mysteriously, yes, around what you call it, the 18th century, we mysteriously find that what you call it, yes, at the end of the 17th century, 18th century, 1795, yes, Poland mysteriously has a lot of Jewish people who mysteriously turned up there. We've got these skulls and bones in Poland. Something happened to the people there. The Vatican's headquarters, the biggest castle in the world, is in Poland. It's a military castle. What do you think they were doing there? It's like the Americans have got their military headquarters. We know this. They've got them in what do you call it, in the Balkans. They've got military stations here and there. What do you think they've got military stations there? Preaching God, or is it conquest?
Well,
The
again,
Chinese,
I'd go for the second option, but yeah, it's like a
the
military base.
Chinese, The Chinese in the South China Sea are building big military bases. Are they doing it because they want to do international trade to sell, iPhones manufactured in China, or what's their aim and ambition? Domination, conquest.
Mm.
Yes. So what we can see is that mysteriously a Jewish community turned up in in Poland. Yes, in the 18th century. So now let's have a look at this community, and what we will find is let's look at it. It's called Polish, or Polishstein comes from this name. I'm going to go through the words meanings a bit more deeper in Latin. So please be patient. Don't make a judgment until we get to the Latin and the Greek. Yes. So now, mysteriously, Warsaw, Jewish Warsaw, grew into the largest Jewish settlement in the world in the 19th century. Yes. Where did these people mysteriously come from? And Hebrew, yes, in the Hebrew language, yes, what do you call it? They turn around and say that Poland means to rest or dwell here. They're guessing, they're saying this, and they're saying this in the Hebrew language, but many of the meanings have been invented. Yes, so they said we'll find it in many dictionaries. Poland, actually, they will say is a Hebrew word, but we cannot find this Hebrew language to be many centuries old. Another thing is, by the 19th century, around 4 million Jews, up to 5 million Jews, yes, were living in the Pale settlement. And mysteriously, many of them came from orphans, or they were originally orphans. I've been through this before. Yes. So what is going on here? Where did they suddenly come from? Yes. When we know that in the 16th or 17th century, yes, the majority of the Jews, yes, were actually not in Poland. They were in other places, but they seem to have disappeared. Yes. And when we look at this, the history is actually suspicious. Yes. What they're telling us is that in the 19th century, yes, what they say to us is that there was around 300 Jewish settlements. Yeah. Notice they've used the name settlements, like in modern Israel they call it settlements too. Yes. By World War One, there were 300 settlements for Jewish residents in Poland, or in the Pale settlement,
Mm-hmm.
or Polishstein. Why were they all called settlements, and why was there 300? So it's suspicious, the numbers that they're using and the mathematics, and then they will tell us that there was mysteriously 300,000 Jewish orphans who mysteriously came. Yes, yeah, and 300,000 Jewish orphans. Yes, that turned up in the late 19th century. That's for the 300 settlements. Can you see? A
Mm-hmm.
thousand orphans per settlement. They grew up. They sent them to Jewish schools, and they taught them these things. Now the dating of these things cannot be verified. So now let's move a bit forward to do with why were they called principalities? Yes, in Germany and in Poland, in France, in Switzerland, in Austria, in Italy, in the Balkans. Why were they called principalities in these Holy Roman Empire lands? Yes. So let's have a look at the word principality. Yes, actually comes from the word prince palace. That was the original. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a prince and you had your land, your land will just be one city or one village, or let's say, like 50 miles square, or something like this, or 20 miles square. You're the prince and your land is called Palestine. Then they changed it to Principalit, or it was originally Principalis. So Pallas was not just in Poland, every place in Europe, that if you're in Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, Hamburg, yes, or Salzburg, wherever, or in the countryside area, there was a lord or a master who ruled it, and those people were from the families that were related to each other. According to the Quranic history, it looks like those people were the children of Israel, according to how Fomenko describes the migration of the children of Israel to Western Europe. So each principality, or let's say each county, was called a palace. Do you see now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this? Yes. So it's in Latin, and then it was changed after. You see? So principales, so they ruled an area called Pallas. So the thing is that Tyne comes from the word Eden or garden, because in them days it was land. So your garden would be your Palestine. You see? Palestine. My
Mm-hmm.
Palestine. This is your Palestine. This is his Palestine. So Palestine was a common name. It was every county in Europe was called Palestine, every single one, and there's hundreds of them. Yes. So the thing is, you can find this throughout the history of Europe. Every single one was called Palestine. Every single one. Yes. And then they tried to give you some other meanings for it, but it was known throughout Western Europe, or starting from as you go, or throughout Europe. So now another thing is each each prince, yes, he had his castle or his what do you call it, walled area, yes, like a star fort or something else, and many farmers lived outside, or if he was rich enough, then they lived within the star fort cities. Yes, and what do you call it? Yes, each prince had his gardens. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
The gardens, and the area was called the palace that he had. So that's where the word palace comes from. You see, and principality or principalities, and that's why it's called palace, and the Eden or garden. Yes, Palestine. Do you see? Yes, there is more. You will say this evidence is flimsy, it's not enough. So I'm going to go through more of it. They've just given us some false meaning and saying, oh no, it came from the Middle East, from the Akkads or modern Kurds, yes, or something, Eden. But Eden actually just means a plain, you see? So you will have your palace, Eden, Palestine. Do you see it? And this was common
Mm-hmm.
name throughout Europe. You know, your plain, 20 miles of land. Yes, Pauline or plain, you see, or Poland or your plain. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it? Yes. So you would have your Palace Eden, Palestine, Palestine, and in the center you would have your palace because you're the Lord. Yes. You are one of the chiefs of the children of Israel. Yes. You know they had many grandchildren, things like this. Yes. So it was called Palace Eden or Palestine or Palestine. You see? Yes, and in Europe they've removed these names, or but in Asia they've still got them. So now the thing is, when you were called Prince of France, yes, that's where the word prince came from. Yes, and even the word called friend or foreigner, Ferengi, named after the pharaoh, the Feren. Yes, that if you're the friend,
Mm-hmm.
Feren, yes, and then prince, that many of them got the title prince. Yes, and that's where the word friend or first came from. Yes, so if you're the first, I mean, in Latin, you know, now they will try to give, they use other words like primus. Yes, but the word first came from primus, or it actually meant the chief, the first, the pharaoh, the pharaoh, the prince, and the first of prince became the prince. He was the noble ruler. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you can see, even from English. So it got from there, even in Arabic, it's Firan, French, or Firanish. You can see. So these things are there in European languages. It's still there. Yes, I've typed this out so that people can see how languages evolved. You know, different dialects, different pronunciations. Yes, but a common thing is what you call it. Yes, it looks like these 400 or 500 words, only 400 words that are found in the Quran, were common words throughout Europe, and it formed the basis of language, like first, ferins, ferend, farin, firaun, yes, and then they developed different meanings. So now what we have is the papal states. Throughout Italy, they had them. The papal states, that's what we call them in official history today. But they were known as the, dads, daddy, papa, Saint Nicole. Of course, I love that Renault advert. Papa Nicole, we. Yes, there is dad states. You know, your dad's principalities. Today they call them states, but they were the same thing. You know, the Pallas states or Pallas Edens. Yes, you know, that is Palestines. Yes, or Palestine. So they had them there. Now, the strange thing is, when we go to Rome today, yes, just what do you call it, 20 miles from Rome, yes, there is a place, a principality called Palestrina, Palestine.
Hmm.
Yes, this was strange. Yes, so the thing is, Palestrina. This is just next door to Rome. But today, what they've done is they tried to give it a different pronunciation to match, fake Latin instead of the local pronunciation. So now they've wrote it to make it difficult, and they will say Praenestine or Pranestine, Pranestine. Yes, yeah, Pranestine. Yes, or however you want to pronounce it. So sometimes they'll write it like this, but what do you call it? What we will see here is this. Yes, they are going to tell us some ancient garbage history thousands of years ago and say that what do you call it? The Palestrinas, they fought against Rome. Yes, they were fighting the Romans. This is just another repeat history of Rome and the Philistines or Palestines. The Philistines in the Bible, in the Old Testament, I'm going to go through it again. Yes. So what they tell us is that these, Palestrinas or Pranestine, yes, was fighting against Rome. Yes. And then when you go there, you can see that there is strange history there that doesn't make sense. And they're going to say it's thousands of years old, but I don't believe it at all. It's probably from the Middle Ages, Renaissance. They say there is a mosaic there of the Nile, but they've obviously just put it there, same like the Orthodox churches. They decorated things. People don't know what's in the Bible. People thought they were praying to God. So the old system continued until eventually, the modern time came and people think that they're Christian in Europe. Yes. So the thing,
Hmm.
there's a mosaic there. It's interesting, but it looks like it's fake history. So now, when we let's go to the Philistines and a few more things. Yes, what do you call it? The Philistines. Have a look. Yes, they told us that the name Palestine came from the Romans or from Latin, and that they've called Palestine today to humiliate the Jews, which doesn't make sense. And then they tried to tell us it came from the Old Testament word Peleset or Peleshet. It's just something they're just trying to invent some fairy tale so that people waste time and many people can't find the connection. But anyway, during the Middle Ages Renaissance, what we know is that this place, just outside the city of Rome, 20 miles, yeah, what we can find, this place is there called Palestrina. Yes, yeah, Palestrina is there. Now, so we can see this there. And let's just have a look at the Nile mosaic that's there. So now what we find is this so-called Nile mosaic, yes, and they're saying it's a decoration work of art in Palestrina, thousands of years old. Mysteriously, yes, it was what do you call it? Only discovered in the 16th century by the humanists working for the Vatican and the Jesuits. Nobody knew it was there until the 16th century. Yeah, same like they didn't. Everyone forgot ancient Rome, for 1,000 years, it was rediscovered. Yes, but and then they tell us some strange history of the battles of Palestrina and all this history. It's just a joke. Yes, but what we know about Rome during the Renaissance was called to many people the Rome in Italy. It was known as what do you call it, the new Jerusalem. It was to many people after the Renaissance. Now Istanbul was also known as Jerusalem, and many other places. Now you won't understand that unless if you actually go through the details. If you don't go through the details, you're not going to understand. I had some people messaging me this week after they watched the last few videos, and I still had to tell them. They asked me questions. I said, the answers are already in the book. Jerusalem is in Europe. Yes, and this book describes the many different Jerusalems in Europe, not just one, that there was several Jerusalems. Yes, so there is more than one Jerusalem. And now when we open up the Old Testament in the Bible, if you read my book, Jerusalem is in Europe, yes, you will find the exact places where Muhammad is mentioned there, the Prophet Muhammad, to the Muslims, he is mentioned there in the Old Testament in the Bible. Of course, in the translations, they're going to say, oh, he's an apple, he's a tree, you know. Yeah. Oh, if you're going to say this, then you could say Jesus Christ is an apple or a tree, or he's a tomato. Yes, but Muhammad's name is clearly in many places in the Old Testament that we can see the Old Testament in the Bible is just events in the Middle Ages. Yes, and in the Bible, we can see there's many stories of the Philistines are actually fighting Israel. Now, if these principalities in Europe are actually named after Pallas Eden or Palestines, yes, and they're fighting against Eastern Europe, then Eastern Europe would be Israel. Now, here is an example, many battles that are being fought between, yes, Israel and the Philistines. Yes. So there's many battles, but they told us that the Philistines lived thousands of years ago. Yes, this is what they told us. Yes, and then they've just disappeared. Yes, and many people can't understand it, and they're asking questions. Why were the Philistines always at war? Yes, what do you call it? Yes, why were they at war? And then these battles mysteriously stopped when around the deportation of Judah to Babylon, and they were a constant enemy of Israel. How can that be possible? Yes. So now let's have a look at what people have noticed about the Philistines. Many people who've read the Bible and know this. I've read the Bible. Many people have never even read it. Don't put your pathetic, stupid comments if you've never even read it. Yes. Now, what we know is that what do you call it? The Israelites were fighting for God or for a concept on the battle. Yes. And Professor Fomenko and other people have pointed out that Judah was full of monks and bishops, and they had their prayers and different different schisms and sects. Yes, and this is why Professor Fomenko points out that what do you call it? Judah was Western Europe, and then it eventually came to represent the priestly class or the people in power. Yes, so Judah basically meant priest or the people in power. I've gone through this in more detail. If you find Professor Fomenko's books difficult, I've explained this in my book, Matrix Codes, in a bit more detail. If you haven't read it, can't do anything. I've made many videos. I'm not going to repeat the same points. I've written it in the books. Yes, so now in Poland, the Vatican has set up its biggest military base, biggest castle, the Teutonic Knights. In Eastern Europe, we've got Tartaria. Yes, so now, of course, your army is the police. This is where it looks like the word police came from. And they're trying to tell us it's public order. No, it's the Vatican's order. Yes, the police. Yes, the police who were protecting the palace, the rich people. Yes, and the troops at the palace. Yes, the troops at the palace, or Palestine. Those troops were called the Philis or Palestines. You see, the Vatican's army, the palace, was always at the top or the castle, and the troops are sitting in the palace. Not like how you imagine, in your fantasy fairy tales, in these castles, the prince, the princess, the prince came on a horse. Will you marry me? Once upon a time and happily ever after. It wasn't like that. These palaces had the Vatican soldiers, and if you're not going to be their slave, your head's getting chopped off. You see, and the troops from the Pallas Eden, they were known as the Philistines. Are you beginning to see the picture now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it was something during the Middle Ages. So the Philistines were throughout Europe. Any of the Pope's troops or any of these troops of the palace were originally called Philistines. Yes. And then as the Pope took over, it became his army. Many researchers can't seem to make sense of the geography of the Bible or the climate or anything. Yes. they can't seem to make sense of it. And what we can see is that in Europe, just in Europe, the climate must have been totally different 200 years ago. We've totally changed the entire landscape that you can't recognize Europe compared to 200 years ago. Yes, many places looked more like desert regions in some parts of Europe 200 years ago. And also, when we just look at the Jerusalem that's in the Middle East today, yes, here is looking at Jerusalem from one side, we can see that it's a village, 10,000 people. Yes, we can see that in one side. And here is looking at Jerusalem. Wait, let me just send you a picture of the other side. Yes, I thought I had both sides ready. No, I don't. But anyway, you can see that the land it doesn't have 500,000 people there like it is today, and even many of the buildings that we see there in the background, like the synagogues and other buildings, many of them were only built in the early 20th century and in the 19th century. In the 19th century, anyway. Yes, like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and many other buildings, they didn't exist. So the population was a lot smaller in that region. So we can't see a city where thousands of people or 1 million people or all these pilgrims went. We can't see the walls or any defenses or anything, that the Crusades were fought there or anything. Yes, we can't seem to find this at all. Yes, so we can't seem to find it at all. Well, anyway, back to the Philistines. The thing is, let's go through some of the stories of these so-called modern Judaism and the history of Judaism. We were told that, let's say in Spain, the Jewish people were told to get out, and so were the Muslims, or convert or die. Yes. And so we all know about the Spanish Inquisition. Of course, these Inquisitions were throughout Europe, but many people seem to imagine that they were just in Spain. Now, for example, they turn around and tell us that many of these Jewish people came to Spain, came to England, came to Ireland, and places like this. Yes, in the 17th century, that we find some history that these Jewish people existed in England. Now, I've sent you 2 pages. Yes, and they call them Sephardic Jews, from Spain, southern France and other places, Italy, Switzerland, Austria, from France coming over there. And then have a look at this. I'm sending you this page again, and I want you to read the last sentence.
The last sentence here says the Mahamad
The
board
Mohammed.
kept detailed records, sometimes including information on legal cases and trade deals.
Oh, these Jews, the board. Yes, they call them Mohammeds. That's a bit strange.
Indeed.
Yes, the elite or the educated, the board, the governors, or at the top, these Jews from Spain who were coming were mysteriously called Mohammeds. Yes. Yeah, which of course, and they were not, let me send you the second page again. So these Mohammeds, or these Spanish Jews, yes, who went around at first, yes, they were refugees, and their boards and their leaders were called Mohammeds. They went to the Netherlands, Hamburg, London, Amsterdam, places like that. But as we can see, it's a serious question. Who were these Jews? At that time, the majority of the Jews spoke Arabic all over the world, especially in Spain. Everyone knows Spain, and the history. The Spanish people were Muslims. The Spanish spoke Arabic. They wrote in Arabic. Yes. And so that's what we know, what it was, until the Edict of Alhambra took place. Yes, of course, they've given us falsified documents. Anyway, the thing is, if anybody wants to find Henry Atlan's work, yes, here is a video where he shows the invention of the modern Jewish religion. This is one of his lectures at the European Jewish Cultural and University Center in France, where he explains that Islam was here before Judaism, and Christianity was here, and they were both fighting each other, and then a new religion formed called Judaism. Yes, and then he goes through. He has several lectures and goes through it. Yes, and then when we look through some of these, Orthodox Jewish documents from the 17th, 18th century, they turn around and say in the 18th century that generation of Jews who are in Germany and in Northern Europe, what do they tell us about this generation of Jews? What does it say
Our
from the Haskalah?
generation, an orphan generation. Everything has
Excuse
changed.
me, they are an orphaned generation, a generation of orphans. What religion was their ancestors? These things are serious questions. What do they mean by this?
I'm
And then
not sure if it
many.
relates, but there's even something called the lost generation in the US in the demographic history they tell us.
Oh, well, we all know about this. The orphans being transferred, kidnapped. Well, that is described very in very detailed in my book, The Orphan Trains, how the church and everybody else were kidnapping children 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, shipping them here, there, everything. It was just a business. They were making money. Same like many people don't realize. Yes, if they destroy Gaza now, which they've destroyed it so much, the rebuilding, yes, everything will have to go through Israel. Security checks. Israel is going to be selling all the equipment, selling all the reconstruction materials, everything. Whoa, Israel's economy is going to boom for the next 10 years. Lots of jobs, more immigrants from Africa, Latin America. Anyone who says, oh, my ancestry is Jewish, yes, oh, it's going to be big business. Raphael, what do you say? We should both go to emigrate to Israel? We'll make lots of money. We can even set up our import company to import cement and other things from all this destruction. What do you say?
Well, reconstruction is a great business. The one other thing,
Billions of
there's
dollars.
recent reports, even in Germany, about how many of the recent refugees have vanished, at least from state registration and so on. So that's the other thing you had mentioned previously.
Oh, we've got no time for these refugees. In Israel, by the way, they bombed these refugee camps. Those refugees used to live inside Israel, but they got thrown out of their homes, get out or die, and things like this. Then they built their houses. We just bombed them and destroyed them. Yeah. Now let's rebuild them, Raphael. We'll make a lot of money. But why don't we set up our own companies? We can import the cement from Turkey. Let's make some partnership with some Turkish companies. They're the nearest. Oh, the Turks can make lots of money too. Money, money, money. What do you say?
Well, not
Are
not
you
my
not into this?
business. I'm not in this type of business, but
Come on, Raphael. We're helping people who are, that they've destroyed on purpose. Yes,
right.
but we're helping them. We'll make a bit of a profit on the side. A couple of, $50 million or something every year we'll make. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. But anyway, so now what we find strangely is that in Orthodox Judaism, yes, the priests, what do you call it, the teachers, are called mulamed. And the Muslims, they call their priests mullahs. Yes,
Right.
yes, mullah. Yes, so many of the traditions survived because many of these children and orphans remember things. Like even if we go through, the 18th century, 17th century of these so-called, manuscripts for modern Judaism, they're very suspicious. Like I want you to read the part that's, what do you call it? Yes, that's inside the red paragraph there of manuscripts being found in the 17th century. Where did they find these manuscripts?
Rabbi Adam found manuscripts in a cave containing hidden secrets of the Torah.
Now, carry on.
Rabbi Adam asked in a dream to whom should he hand down the manuscripts. He was answered to hand them down to Rabbi Israel ben Eliezer, of the city
There
of
you go.
Okopi.
You
Okay.
basically got the message. It's like we can go to a cave right now. Maybe we will find ancient Buddhist manuscripts. Oh, they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in caves too. Yes. And by the way, Rabbi Adam, yes, Rabbi just means Arabi or educated, from the word Arab or Arabian or European. Yeah. Yes. And Rabbi Adam, by the way, he lived in the 18th century. Yes. So it's a suspicious story, and he's the first leader of Hasidic Judaism. Yes, in Europe. Oh, by the way, they found them in a cave in Europe somewhere. Yes. So this is the sort of history. I found the photograph of the other side of Jerusalem. 100 years ago, you've seen one side. Now here is the other side. There's nothing there. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes, there's no evidence of a mega city, yes, or anything, or crusades, pilgrimages of 1 million people. It's just some place in the middle of the desert that was, only recently people have been there. Yes, what do you call it? But anyway, now let's have a look at Professor Fomenko came to the same conclusion as me. So it's not just him. Yes, it's me and many other people that we can see that these Philistines or Palestines or these soldiers are fighting Eastern Europe. Now, Professor Fomenko, yes, has pointed out that looking at this evidence of the Bible and other manuscripts, yes, that Israel was actually this mega empire during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And modern Israel is just, is just an invention. Yes. So now let's have a look at when I said Pallas and Palestine and the Pallas troops and all these things. Let's go back. So they are going to say it's from the, Palatine. Or by the way, Rome. You will soon come to it. Yes, the Roman military. Yes, ancient Rome didn't exist. It was the Holy Roman Empire or this Holy Roman region of Western Europe. West from Ukraine. Yes, so Palatium came from Pallas, you see, and the soldiers of the Pallas were called Palestine or Palatini or Philistines. Can you see it now?
Right.
Palestines.
Hmm.
Yes, and why do the Arabs say Palestine? Yes, it's because of the Germans. Remember, we discussed the Germans and the Turks. It's the same thing. Otto, yes, from Otto of Germany. So what we can see, the term derives from Palatium. They've invented it for the Latin dictionary. Yes, or these Palatines. Yes, comes from the word Palestines. Palestines. Today we say Palatine. Yes, that these soldiers, they were armies. Yes, who served for the imperial escorts. When we say imperial escorts, we're saying every village, 20 miles square, had a leader. It's like if there's me, I have 100 miles square. If I have 5 sons, each one has 20 miles square. He's going to have his palace and his just his bodyguards, you can say. And so they were called the Palestines. You see,
Hmm.
So what do you call it? You can see they say later, depending on what their later is. Yes, they were in the regional comitatus, basically in every county in Europe. You see, every county, the palace had its soldiers, and they were called Palestine or Palatini. Today we call it. Are you beginning to see it now?
Hmm.
The Philistines were soldiers in Europe, and they were fighting Israel, which is Eastern Europe. You see, Eastern Europe wasn't Catholic. And that's why Fomenko says that Eastern Europe, yes, Orthodox religion and modern Islam, it was one religion and the same, and they had the Quran in their prayer houses. Are you beginning to see this now?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. And then eventually they started to pay them. That's what the Vatican soldiers were.
But
Yes,
so
the
just in
Vatican.
terms of geography, the idea would be that the quote unquote invasion would have started from Italy and then went
Yes,
to
and where did they come from? Italy. As you noticed, Didier
Cairo,
pointed
like you
out.
said. Hmm.
Yes, yeah, Cairo. And notice that Didier turned around and said Lepanto. Yes, Lepanto is not what we think it is. Turkey fighting against the Holy Roman Empire or Venetian troops. Yes, it's actually from Egypt. And that's why Professor Fomenko pointed out that Venetian soldiers all had Arabic. Yes. So now, as we can see, what do you call it? Yes, they were called Palestines. Now, they've invented the fake history to show that there's ancient Greece there, but I've shown one site, and in a similar way, they built all these ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and in the video, you can see they've put statues there. Pause that video before, and you'll see the statues are brand new, everything. They've just put these things there, and they're pretending they found these things. But according to this so-called history, they're saying that the Palatine schools or the Palestine schools were the elite military imperial guard for the Roman Emperor Constantine, yes, and all these other people. Yeah, so sometimes they will call it, like they said, instead of Palestrina, Praestrina, yeah, they'll call it the Praetorian Guard. They've invented this name to hide it. It was the Palestine Guard. You see?
Uh-huh.
Yes, the Philistines and the Palestines in the Bible, in the Old Testament, were not thousands of years ago. They were not in the Middle East. Yes, they've just said that it's in the Middle East because they've invented a country there called Israel, because they want you to think that there's Armageddon there, everything. And they want to bring that into the New World Order, that region, bring the whole area into conflict, force them into urbanization, until the Muslims pay taxes, this, that. It's the last one of the last regions left. But anyway, so these soldiers they went to Palestine schools. They were the Palestinians or Philistines or whatever you want to call them. Yes, and this army, first they're going to say it's ancient, but then we find the same story during the Middle Ages, 1,000 years later. Yes, the army of the Holy Roman Empire was also called the Palatine army. Oh, no, no, no. They told us it was 1,000 years before that, but the Roman Empire disappeared, and we've lost the history of Rome. And they say that the history of the Roman Empire was rediscovered, yes, what do you call it, during the Renaissance. Yes. Well, now what they tell us is that the 7 Years' War, yes, took place in Europe. Yes. What do you call it? The last major conflicts before the French Revolution, or something happening in France. So now what we are told is that mysteriously in Europe, yes, all these princes and counts, they were called Count Palatine. Yes, that Charlemagne
Right.
or Solomon or Charlemagne and all these kings, yes, in the Carolingian dynasties in France and Germany, that they had all these princes or counts or military generals known as Palatine or Palestines. Yes, as did the Holy Roman Empire, and they were like the personal soldiers. It was an army, Philistines. Yes, are you beginning to see
Right.
what
It's
it is
obvious
here?
by now, yeah.
Yeah. And then what they've done is they only point out there's a small part of Germany or Holy Roman Empire, only a small part called the Palatine army thing. But what we are told that they were just princes, and then they become paupers and things like this in the 30 Years' War. Yes, and have a look at this. I want you to read the third line in this document. What does it show?
Landless exiles and how the Palatine question.
Stop. That's enough. That's what we've been talking about for 100 years, the Palestine question. So they used the same plot, the same plan of how the Vatican took over Europe. You see?
Mhm.
Yes. That what now yes, now carry on from there. The Palatine question or the Palestine question
Became one of the most important issues of the entire 30 Years' War.
30 Years' War. Look at what they did. This is during the Renaissance. What do you think this Palestine question is going to do to the rest of the world one day? We have to avoid this. They're using the same plots, the same plans. Are you beginning to see
Right, yeah.
the Palestine question? It is such it's like an entire issue that many people say that it's related to September the 11th, this, that, Iraq war, Afghanistan, everything. And if people want to find the exact link, from Oxford University, they can find it there. Yes. Yeah, and what did the Palatine or the Palestine question at that time do? Yes, it was the issue which arguably caused the Bohemian Revolt, Bohemia. Yes, Czech Republic, that spread throughout Europe for 3 decades of war, and then even after then, it was just a disaster. Yes,
Wow, even here it
so
says Palatine Question or Pfalz, like Rhineland-Pfalz in Germany. So,
yes,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yes. So it's because Palatine is in Germany. So now the thing is, let's have a look at, because people are going to say, no, David, you're exaggerating. Palatine is not Palestine. Yes, it is. The Latin word is Pallas. And here it is again. Yes, the Holy Roman Soldiers. Yes, Palatine means Palestines or the Pallas troops. Palestines,
Mm-hmm.
Philistines. Yes, and they were the elite units of Rome or Holy Rome, whatever. They're going to say ancient Rome was thousands of years ago, Holy Rome was 500 years ago. Yes, 400 years ago, 300 years ago. So this Palestine question and this thing, they've used the same plan and plot before. Now they've entered it in the Middle East over there, and they could drag the whole world into this until they totally bring the entire world under their control. You see? Yes, they did Palestine. Palestine was the last part of Palatine. The beginning of Palatine or Palestine was Rome. I'm going to go through that in a minute. It started in Rome, and they called it Palestine. Then it spread throughout Europe, many different Palestines. Yes, and then Palestine became the main one or the last one. And then when that got thrown out of Europe, yes, they sent people from Poland and other places to the Middle East, and they've started the same process again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? Yes. And what do you call it? Let's have a look at how big these wars and things affected Europe. What percentage of Mannheim in Germany was Palestine soldiers, Philistine soldiers?
Half, here it says. Mm-hmm.
Ah,
50%. Mm-hmm.
so it shows that Europe became such a joke, militarized. Yes, that people were so afraid. Is this how we want the world? Yes, and what are we told in history? Historians will tell us the same thing, that from the Bible and biblical related documents, who were the Philistines? Yes,
They were known for their innovative use of iron, with
and
more advanced armaments and aggressive military policy.
yeah, they were, what do you call it? Yes, they were a military machine. There's more. Some people will say, David, it's flimsy. It's not enough evidence. Okay, then let's go. Yes, and what do you call it? Yes, read the second line of this. Yes, who were the Philistines according to biblical organizations, according to people who know the Bible?
They
They were a
were
nation of
a nation of warriors trained in the art of war.
soldiers. Fight for dad. Dad wants you to fight. You see, the Philistines were Europeans. The events in the Bible took place in Europe during the Middle Ages. Around that time, they've invented it. And now the thing is, they've moved this Philistine thing to a new location, invented these places, and they've given them new names in the Middle East and saying, oh, this is genuinely Hebron. But the place, the local people say, oh, this place is called Khalil, Khalil. And they say, oh, this is the Jerusalem of the Bible. Sorry, but we just know it's called Quds. You see? And so Fomenko clearly says, not just him, I'm saying it, many other people who've read the Bible, investigated these things, and they've said that the so-called ancient biblical history is what? Identified as what?
As the history of Europe.
Yes, that's all it is. It's because we're finding it. There's no doubt that the Philistines were actually the Palestinians. Yes, and the thing is, these. So the thing is, there were all these battles that were fought. Yes, that when for example, one of the biggest battles in Europe, we see the Battle of Grunwald in the 15th century. Of course, they've modified the dates and all these things. Yeah, where these Palestinians or Pallas soldiers or Philistines were fighting. Yes, it was the largest ever battle to be fought in medieval Europe. Yes. So what the hell was going on? Yes. And so let's have a look at who was fighting who in this battle. It doesn't make sense. So these battles are biblical battles. Yes. And they're going to say that in this battle, there was Polish, there was Lithuanians, Russians, and all these things on one side. And on the other side were the Palestinian armies or the Philistines. But then they're telling us this is in the 15th century. At the same time, they're telling us, yes, that what do you call it, in the 14th century, 15th century? What are they telling us happened in Europe in Russia, Poland at that time? What does it say?
After the Mongol attacks on Eastern Europe.
Wait a minute,
Hmm.
aren't they supposed to be Russians and Polish? But now they're Mongols. So the thing is, their history doesn't make sense. Then they will turn around and say, the Mongols, this, that. And then they will say that these Polish and Russians. Oh, no, no, no. One place they'll say Polish Russians added 100 years, this and that. But here they're going to say who was fighting against Poland and Germany.
The Mongols again.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mongols. Yes. Ogode. Yes. Or Gode or Gouda or Goth. Yes. So, and then what do you call it? Even from that time, yes, what many people turn around and say, who were the Mongols?
Identified by Matthew Paris with the 10 lost tribes of Jews.
Yes, Matthew Paris wrote many centuries ago, not now. Yes. And what do you call it? It wasn't just him. There's many people that the legend of Prester John. You know this legend, yes? Prester John. Many people say that maybe he was John the Baptist or Genghis Khan. Yes. Prester John, yes, was the leader of who?
The Mongols and the 10 lost tribes.
Yes. So obviously they didn't like Israel. Israel was the 10 tribes. So they gave them pathetic names like Mongols, Mongrels, and things like this. And Prester John has been mentioned by none other than Marco Polo. Yes. You know about the legend of Marco Polo. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And he says, what do you call it? Yes. What do you call it? Prester John um, was the Christian warrior, or they followed Jesus Christ. Doesn't mean they're Christian, but they accepted Jesus Christ, and the thing is, they were what do you call it? Yes, from the other side, from Russia and Central Asia. So as we can see, when we look through this history, we can see they've invented the stories, they've lied, added, deleted, and they've done these things to mystify people and things like this. Yes, and the Mongols. Who were the Mongols fighting according to official history? Whose army were they fighting? When they got to Hungary, who entering
Oh, they
Germany?
destroyed the Palatine's army. Uh-huh.
Palestinians.
Hmm.
Don't use the modern version, Raphael. Let's stick to the original. Palestine's army or Philistine's army. And then they got to the center of the country. Yes, it's a little clear. Flamenco's correct, yes, that these Mongols were Israel. Israel was the empire, was a global empire. Yes, so now let's go to Rome. Yes, the first Palestine, they used the same system. Yes, when the Vatican and its boys, Daddy and his boys, Raphael, we have to call him Daddy because, he might, the Teutonic Knights, they're so barbarous. Yes, we might get burnt at the stake. Yes, so what do you call it? Yes, where was
And just to
Rome
be clear,
born?
there still exist all kinds of official military orders and people getting awards and so on. Just saying, even the Teutonic Knights, I think. It doesn't mean they are related to what this means, but they still exist.
Oh yeah, it's because these nation states are a fraud. There's other people at the top. But anyway, where is Rome born? Where is the center of Rome? Or what was Rome
Oh,
originally
the
called?
Palatine Hill is the
Yes.
birthplace of Rome.
Notice it's called a hill also. That's where they say Romulus and Remus was born. No, notice Abram means father of Rome, Abba Rome. Yes, and he had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. So what do you call it in Rome? There's Romulus and Remus.
Hmm.
Yeah, they've turned it into a legend. But anyway, so it's born at Palestino, or at the top of the hill where you are going to have the soldiers in the palace. Yes, and what do you call it? Yes. So let's have a look at what is this Palatino Hill. Yes, before they gave it the name Rome. Yes, what do you call it? Yes, this place was named after whose? After Caesar's what?
Originally signified something pertaining to the Caesar's palace.
Yes, and Palatine originally came from the name Pallas. Yes. So now, mysteriously, what we see is that the Vatican, yes, is getting involved in Europe around the Renaissance, around the beginning of the Renaissance, and we hear these strange stories, the Black Death, and then they say the population of Rome. Don't forget, people were living in villages. Yes, that we're talking, 20, 30 miles square, and its population was less than 20,000. They're saying it's 20,000, but I couldn't even find 20,000. I'll show this in a minute. Yes, and not only that, many maps from the Middle Ages. Yes, what do they show, Raphael, about Rome? What do
Now,
we find?
what?
Second line,
Yes,
bottom line.
medieval maps of Rome are few and
Okay,
not
yeah,
much of a help. Haha.
that's enough. Why can't we find no maps of Rome? It didn't exist. Now, even when we look at artist impression and drawings of Rome in the 16th century, yes, what do you see?
If anything, maybe a small
Nothing.
starport.
Yeah, hardly anything's there. Now, even during the Renaissance, 15th, 16th century, yes, we can see Rome looks like how Jerusalem looked like 100 years ago, just a small village. No smaller. Can you see it? So those are artists' impressions. But now let's go to more accurate descriptions of Rome, just 400 or 500 years ago. Yes, when you look at this picture, there's hardly anything there. And you'll say, it's not clear, David. It's flimsy. So, okay, let's look at a 15th century map of Rome. Yes, here is a 15th century map of Rome. We can't find anything before this time, just a few, and you can see it there. So you know what I did? I've made it bigger for those people who just want to fight and debate and talk garbage for no reason. Yeah, start counting how many buildings there is. Yes, 200, 300. How many people are living in Rome? Yes. Now, Palestrina, yeah, just in case some people are lazy to check, yeah, Palestrina is 20 miles south of Rome, and Rome was built around Palestine Hill or Palatine Hill. Yes, yes. So let's see the official history, what they're teaching us about this Palestine Hill or Palatine Hill. This is the first Palestine that I can see. Yes, this Palatine Hill mysteriously turns up in the 15th century. We can't find it before then. And this is the origin or the birthplace of what?
Of the Italian capital.
There you go. But they're going to be telling us it's 3,000 years old. Yes? And what do you call it? Who was living there? Roman citizens of the upper class. Not citizens, the military and all these people.
Hmm.
Yes? And that's why it was called Palatine Hill or Palestine Hill, because there's palaces there, or the military palaces, because the Pope was a military general. Yes? And just to make it clear again, because some people will say, no, Palatine is Palatine. No, it's not. It was named after, what was it named after?
Named after Pallas. Hmm.
Now
Okay.
what are they saying Palace
It's a
is?
boy. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh,
Who
now
lived,
they're
a
saying
boy who
Palace.
died there. The son
Yeah,
of, okay, okay, yeah, this and
instead
that.
of
Hmm.
saying that it came from the word, palace to mean like a palace. So there was a boy. So now, mysteriously, we've got legends. And so now, ancient Greece and ancient Rome was mysteriously rediscovered in the 16th century, 15th century. Yes. And what do you call it? One of the greatest gods of Rome, known as Minerva or Minerva, and Athena in Greece. What is the original name of Athena? Or Athens, Athena, Palestina.
Yeah, Pallas
What is the
Athena.
original name?
Pallas
Yes,
Athena, yeah.
Palestine.
Hmm.
That was the original name.
Palatine.
So
Yeah,
now,
yeah, you just put it together in one
yes,
word. Yeah, yeah.
that was the original name. So now they're trying to say that, oh no, this was a, maybe it's a boy, maybe it's a god, one of the gods. They've just given it a mythical story. Let's check if it was really Palestine, yes, this place in Rome, or was it, did it come from a myth before then? Let's have a look at this. Yes. So they tell us, what do we know about this goddess called Athene? Yes, what do we know? Really, Palestine. Yes, is the full name. What do we know about Palestine? Yes, what we can see depictions of her in the Renaissance. The figure is identified.
By the cameo on her breastplate as Palestine, the warrior.
The warrior! The Philistines are here! They've come to fight Israel. Warriors! Are you beginning to see it now? Yes. So then there is more. So the thing is, let's go through, yes, how they got Palais or the Pale settlement or Paul, St. Paul, all of these things. You will know they invented these stories just modifying words. So Palatine Hill, yes. What do you call it? Yes. The title of what? Pallas?
Pallas Athene, earth-shaking
Yes.
immortal one.
Yes. Like an earth shaking, like violent. And then Pallas. Pallas. Palestine. Yes. So let's go further, and from there, that's why they called it, the Pale settlement or Pallas settlement or Palais or Palace. Yes, where the Jewish people were in the 19th century. And then when they took over the north, the Teutonic Knights, that they're spreading Christianity there, we mysteriously find this place after the 18th century. What's it called in St. Petersburg, named after Peter's Square or St. Peter's
Palace
Rock? What's it
Square.
called? Pallas Square. Oof. Oh no. Yes, and that's in the north, the Vatican control, and in the south, yes, on Pallas Athena, yes, in Palestine, yes, in the south, in this city, which they changed the name and invented it Rome. Yes, copying it from Istanbul was called Jerusalem and Rome. That's in my books. I'm not going to explain it now. If you've not read it, don't turn around and say, hey, I don't know if it's called Rome or not, blah, blah, blah. But here, we can see here is their southern capital. Yes, and that is St. Peter's Square. Yes, St. Peter's Square. So now, if if you go to if you go to Petersburg, they've got this character saying Peter the Great. Yes, brought Western civilization to Petersburg. You've heard this history, yes? Yeah, that he went to France and everywhere. So now throughout the Renaissance and even after then, yes, many paintings, statues, yes. And the thing is, people will say it's Athena. That's where the name Athens come from, or Eden, yes. But the full name is, yes, have a look. There's many statues that you can see. And what do we see? The description of Athena, the goddess. What is it?
Portrays the Greek goddess of wisdom, craft, and war in a martial pose
War.
holding a spear.
A spear, the Philistines, Pallas Athene. Yes. So they've invented the Philistines in the Middle East. It was a European thing. So now another thing is, what you will notice is that they're holding a spear, and many people have noticed this. They put a stick in the middle of Rome. Yes. Can you see the stick? Yes. And
Yeah.
they put a stick in the middle of St. Petersburg and many other places, yeah, where the New World System has been applied. And now let's go through Greek and Latin more. Yes, let's use some sensible words. But what do you call it? Yes. So what is phallus or phallus?
Phallus.
Yes, it's a penis. Yes, that's erect. Yes, and to show dominance and dominance. Yes, that you're in charge and you've got power. And what do you call it? Normally, it's a hill figure. Notice it's on a hill or a mountain. Mount or Temple Mount. This is the fight in the current Jerusalem or Quds. And the thing is, you'll notice that Rome was built on Palatine Hill. or Palatine Mount. I'm going to go through this in a minute, that the original Temple Mount was in Rome. Yes, so these people have left their sticks everywhere, these palaces. Yes, and I'm here. Let's go again in case some people aren't satisfied with, the Philistines were a European thing and they've turned it. Well, let's have a look. What is Pallas Athena? Known primarily as what?
The goddess of war.
War! The Philistines! The Romans! You see? Yes. So now, what do you call it? So now, let's have a look at this. So they also say that this person was very clever. So now, what is this place in Rome called?
Palatine Mount.
Let's use the original word.
Palestine Mount.
Palestine Mount. And what are they fighting over in this current Jerusalem? What do they call it? Temple what?
Temple Mount.
Yeah. And all it's got is just an old mosque. If you read my books, it was called the Mosque of Omar, and they've just given it a mythological history. Yes. And they're saying this is the Mount of Palestine. It's the same story, the same system of how they took over Southern Europe and then marched north. The same plan. Here is the current Temple Mount, and let's just show, Palatine Mount in Rome, in case many people don't know what it looks like, and they're going to say, hey, I don't know these things. It's just the ruins in Rome, not far from the Colosseum, that many people have been there. It's like if you're walking in the city and you come out of the metro. Yeah, if you're staying in a hotel, I stay in Rome for a few days normally, so I'll take a metro. I don't like staying in that area. It's too boring at night. Yes, so all these Roman ruins and everything are on Palatine Hill or Palestine Hill. Yes, the Roman Forum and everything. You see? Yes, that is actually Palestine Hill. You see? Can you see it? Yes, and that was known as Temple Mount or Palatine Mount. Yes? Yeah, you can see. These things are written in their so-called Renaissance documents. You can see it in case somebody will say, hey, send us more links to have a look. I've got some. You can look for all these things. Best links is translated to Italian, and then look for the Italiano, and then you can look in the Italiano websites, and then you will know that there is Mount Palatino. This is the Temple Mount. This is the Palestine Hill. This is where the palaces was and the palace. Yes, and Papa, your dad was here. Yes, in Italiano, buongiorno, you're welcome here anytime you want to come to Rome. Yes, yes, and if you're communist, you're not welcome, but some people like the communists. Avanti populo, bandiera rossa, triumferà. Anyway, so what is this place called again?
Mount Palatino.
Ah, the Temple Mount. Yeah, Dad's going to be so proud that we know so much. Yes, and his temple was there. Yes. Oh. Well, let's have a look at this. Dad, I mean, the Papa of Rome. Yes. So which part is the Temple Mount exactly?
The Palatine Mount is the higher part of the hill.
And the site
of many important monuments and buildings.
The palaces, basically. Yes. So in case anybody thinks I'm making it up, they can have a look. And then who built, the most important palaces and everything, on Palestine Hill? Yes. Who first built this?
Romulus.
Romulus and Remus, the founding father of Rome. Yes. So I'm sure you're beginning to see this history. Yes. At first you probably thought, oh my God, no. It can't be that Rome was Palestine, but have a look. It's everywhere. You can study this day and night. Yes. Many people have been there. Yeah. What is the name of this place? Use the old name.
Palestine Mount in Rome.
I have stood upon the Palestine Mount, where formerly the palaces, because it's Palestine of the Caesars, raised themselves in more than imperial grandeur. But what an Alp of fragments! What a mountain of broken walls and columns and stones, peering upward like the natural rock of Mother Earth. Yes, this was the first Palestine that the Vatican daddy set up, our great dad set up. Yes, and he set these things up. And then what did they do now? So now they mention Romulus and Remus. But what is the story of Romulus and Remus? What is this story?
According to Roman mythology, the
Before
Pallas.
this, it's mythology. It's just a myth. I can make up a
Right,
story.
sure. Hmm.
Yeah, we can change Romulus and Remus to David and Raphael. Yes. So what do you call it? Yes, and the
I
Temple
mean,
Mount.
just as on
Yes.
a basic reality check, I guess most people that had some higher education learned about this in school, about Rome and so on, or there's things, or many things about history, and it always seems like they are just relaying some kind of stories. You know, it's like, yeah, sure, he got raised by
Yeah.
a wolf, and I mean,
Oh,
what is
don't
this?
worry, I'll
I mean,
get back
no,
to that,
I'm just saying
Raphael.
it's obvious that this is not cannot be real history, and no one ever wants to explain it properly. It's really strange.
Hey, we can make our own history like that. Let's find Daddy. Let's give him a telephone call and say, Dad, we want to work for you. We want to be Jesuits. Please, please, we beg you. Well, anyway, yes. What do you call it? Yes. So what do we find on Palestine Mount or the Temple Mount? What is there?
Palaces, palaces,
They erected what?
obelisks. Hmm.
Wait, obelisks look exactly like this palaces or penises, what many people don't know. So they put, yes, they put on this Temple Mount, they put, what do you call it, all these obelisks there, in case people don't know. And the Palestine Mount was covered by what? What was the exact Palestine Mount?
Covered
The
by the
palace
palace
of
of the
the,
Caesars. Hmm.
yes, of the leaders. Yes. Of course, they've invented the history saying it's Caesar's, yes, to change it all, but it's basically them. Now, let's go a bit further. Yes. So now the main temple or palace, one of the main ones on this Palestine hill in Rome, is what?
The temple of Apollo Palatinus.
Palestinus.
Palestine
Yes.
Apollo. Hmm.
Paul. Yes, to the god Paul, constructed on Palestine Hill, yes, and things like this. Yeah, of course, they've given a fraudulent history for this, but we'll go through uh, um, 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 the fake history in a minute. And what do people notice when they go to Rome's Palestine Hill? What can you see from Palestine Hill?
You can see the extraordinary panorama.
Yeah, of these Roman buildings, you can basically see everything. And another thing is, what do you call it? The main temple of Paul or Apollo or Saint Paul, yes, of Palestine Hill in Rome. What is the description of this main temple? How would you describe it?
Here it says the house had been noted for its modesty. Uh-huh.
Um, Beyond that. No, no,
According
no. It doesn't. Where are you reading this? Which page?
the
Have I
temple,
sent you the wrong page? Temple of Apollo,
Palatinus.
Palatinus.
Hmm.
Yes.
Palatine
What does it
House
say?
had been noted for its modesty. According to Roman authors, the temple's sanctuary also included the Roma Quadrata, square Rome.
Yes. So now, the thing is, when I said yes, um, um, just repeat the temple sanctuary. What did it have in the temple's sanctuary? The quadrata.
Hmm.
Yes. The quadrata, the square temple. Yes. And what many people don't know is that what you call it at the moment on what you call it on the so-called Temple Mount in the Middle East. Yes, what they want to do is get rid of the Muslim temple there, or the Muslim mosque. Yes, which has got a gold dome, and they want to replace it. Yes, same plan. how they had it in the old days, the quadrata. What they want to do is have a quadrata, or a perfect quadrata, or a perfect cube. It's got to be that they want to get rid of this Muslim mosque. And this was a village, nothing special about it. And they want to do their square temple there. Yes, that's what they want to do. Now, the thing is, there is another square temple in Mecca. Yes, a mosque, I mean, the Kaaba. But that's not a cube. And the thing is, Muslims have Jesus Christ. Let me just show the difference. Yes, the Muslim Jesus Christ, we don't know what he looks like. Yes, I showed this before. And then you will see this is very important to differentiate. Yeah, I'm just getting it out so that people can see. When you walk, when we examine the Muslim Jesus compared to the Vatican Jesus or the Christian Jesus, yes, there is a totally big difference. Yes, the Muslims have got no pictures, no statues, nothing. So all we can find is when we look at Islam, yes, we don't know what Jesus looks like or anything according to Islam. All we find is the Muslim Jesus. So the Muslims have got a Jesus. The Muslims have got like a cube type of mosque building or something. But then when we look at Christianity, yes, there is a big difference here. Yes, that we don't seem to think. Yes, the type of images that they're showing, and the thing is, many people will say it's actually sick. I don't want to share these pictures. It looks a bit scary. But basically, the pictures of the Christian Jesus Christ is actually, full of blood and
Yeah,
everything.
I'm sure
Blood and death.
most people listening have seen those pictures. Yeah.
Blood, death symbols, and all these things. So the thing is, the Pope and in Judaism, the thing is, in these pagan religions, they have animal sacrifices. Now, in the temple that they want to build in Quds or Jerusalem in the Middle East, they want to do animal sacrifices there, killing, burning animals alive. You'll have to go and study this yourself. I don't have time to talk about it. The thing is, yeah, that's a totally different subject. Well, anyway, so there was the square temple on Temple Mount on or what do you call it? Pallas Athena or Palestine, and that was actually Rome. Yes. And what are we told about the Temple Mount in Rome? Yes, this Temple Mount or this square temple. Yes, what used to happen there?
The temple was considered being one of the most important religious sites and was visited by many pilgrims seeking divine
That's
guidance.
it. That's Palestine, and that's the Temple Mount. Yes, and St. Paul is Apollo, the Temple of Apollo. Yes, and what do you call it? If some people are disputing, there's so many statues. I'm not talking about one or two hundreds statues, coins, books, everything. Athena, yes. What do you call it? Roman marble statues. They're going to say it's from the fourth, fifth century, but our Greek statues, they're actually from the Renaissance. What is this goddess Athena? Her full name?
It
Marble
says
statue of Pallas
Pallas
Athena.
Athena. Yeah.
Palestine.
Hmm.
Yes, Palestina. Yes, so that is Palestina. There's many of these paintings, drawings in books, and you find the same thing. Yes, for short, we just say, it's the goddess Athena. Yes, or standing on a globe from the Renaissance 16th century. What do we have? They don't even know who did it, what dates. They get many things. But what's the name? Is it just Athena? What's the full name?
Well, the one here,
Standing on a globe. Standing on a globe holding a spear, the warrior goddess. Have you not received it?
Pallas Athena.
Metropolitan Museum of Art. Pallas Athena, yes, Palestina. Yes, I'm saying it in English, Pallas Athena. Yes, so the thing is, but it's Palestina. Yes, Philistina, the god of war. You see, that's why the Philistines were, what do you call it? Have a look, Minerva, Pallas Athena in Greek, she was originally a goddess of what? The National
Again,
Gallery.
goddess of war.
Yeah, the Philistines, and they were warriors, you see? Yes. So as we can see, this hill in Rome is named after Pallas or Phallas and all these things. It's not very difficult to figure it out. Let's go to dictionary.com and all these things. What do we find? Yes, Pallas, yes, is the goddess of what? The clever goddess of some type of arts and
And
warfare.
prudent
She,
warfare.
yeah, the guardian of Athens, identified with Minerva or other things. Different spellings: Athena, Athene, Pallas Athena, Pallas Athene. Yeah, Palestina. Yeah. Don't forget, no, not everybody speaks English. In the Mediterranean, they just say Palestina, Tina, Palestine, Palestina, Palestine. You see, so people um, they pronounce it in different ways. And what do we see? What did they do on this Roman Temple Mount of Pallas Athena? What did they do?
They had the sacred fire of Vesta.
Sacred fire. So on Temple Mount, they want to have the fire and to do the sacrifices in the Temple Mount in Jerusalem and Quds. And of course, these Arabs and these Muslims won't allow it. Yes, but many people don't realize what this is about. Yes, and then the thing is, because the Pope was also in the north, they spread these things, trying to convert Scandinavia, the Baltics, and all these places. What do you call it? These stories, yes, of the legend of Pallas and all these other things. Yes, what do we find?
While accounts of the excavation of a renowned historical figure were not uncommon in the later Middle Ages, no similar
Later Middle
legend,
Ages means the Renaissance.
mhm,
Yes.
no similar legends seem to have had a comparable breadth of circulation and versatility of use throughout Europe, from Iceland and Norway to Italy and Spain.
So basically, throughout Europe, this Pallas legend, you know, whatever it is or was all over Europe. You see? Yes.
Right.
Are you beginning to see? So now let's have a look. The goddess Athena, Aten, Eden, Garden of Eden. Yes. It looks like they invented the legend. So now let's have a look. Yes, then there is Aten, or the god Aten of Egypt and everything. Now, what is suspicious? Yes, everybody has noticed that the Greek Hebrew word, or the biblical word for God, is Adonai, is
Yeah.
exactly the same as Adonis in Egypt, and Adana. You see, it's exactly the same word. Yes, that many people have noticed, and people have noticed that the myth of Adonai, yes, it actually, the word is similar to what we say Adonai or Eden. Yes, the Garden of Eden. You see that that is not the name of God. Yes, that many when they translate it, that they know it doesn't mean God. So that's why when they translate it into European languages, they don't translate it as God. What do they translate it as?
Lord.
Yes, and even in modern Hebrew, it's basically you know in a similar term. And then when we look at Arabic, yes, the word Eden means garden or the world. In modern Arabic, the word dunya, yes, Idanya, Eden or Dunai, Adonai or Dunya, yes, just means the world. That's why, yes, now because the new generation speaks Hebrew, but 30 years ago, the Jewish people from the Middle East and from the Mediterranean, they didn't say Adonai. Because for them, Adonai meant Dunai, or Dunya meant just the world. It didn't mean God. Yes, yes. And let's have a look at something. Here is Palestinians who are writing online. Yes. This is not somebody who's writing. It was got someone who was interviewed from the West Bank, and then they tell you what's going on. The Israeli government, yes, what they do is with the people. If you read this, the Palestinians, what they're doing is the process of urbanization, that they've made life in the countryside hell for the people there, so that people will have to move to the cities. Urbanization. That's what happened in Europe and other places. Then the nation states took over the land. Now in Israel, they're doing the same, and this process is going to spread throughout the Middle East. Many other countries like Syria, Jordan, Iraq, they're all following a similar policy. Yes, and like I said last time, the Muslims don't follow these systems. They build anywhere they want and things
Hmm.
like this. Like here, the Israeli government on in Palestinian land. Let's say the Israeli government came to Austria saying, "Hey, why have you built this land here? You have to pay $10,000, or we're just going to send the army, and the tank's going to blow it up." It's a big business. They're making thousands of dollars. It's a big business what's going on over there. Oh, the Vatican did that to people over here. Yes. So the thing is, what's going on is actually a joke. But now let's see, because there are some people who are going to still say, no, Pallas Athena, it's actually the goddess, it's in the legends, it's in the manuscripts, blah, blah, blah. Yes, none of these manuscripts existed. Let's see where they found out all these gods and everything during the Middle Ages. It's highlighted in blue.
The civilizations of ancient Greece and Rome were rediscovered, inspiring an interesting classical learning which challenged medieval beliefs and ideas.
Oh, you know what we can do? Let's call Dad. Yeah, he's in Rome. He lives most of the time. I think he's in the Vatican today. Let's call Dad Raphael. Yeah, and tell him if he lets us into the Jesuits that we're going to rediscover. We're going to rediscover new civilizations, and we're going to challenge whatever the original history is.
I only think
I'm sure
he's
Daddy
already
will
got a
like
few
this
of
plan.
those calls and a few of those people acting it out right now.
But they haven't got the Middle East
Discovering
yet.
new
You
civilization every day.
come on, we've got to get rid of all these Muslims in Gaza, all these people. Let's rediscover some new civilization for them. We'll just make it up. Daddy will like our plans. You know what I mean? It'll sell guns. We've got all these, knights of the Vatican orders who control many of these military organizations and nation states that are selling weapons. They're making lots of money right now. It's a big business. Don't you know they've made so many people so scared in Israel, thinking Hamas is going to come? So people are buying so many guns. They're making millions of dollars right now. Daddy's always got good plans. Why we could join some of these
That's
plans
great.
or
Sounds like
innovate
making
some of
money on
them.
every side all the time. You know, that's hmm.
Dad's a businessman. Don't you know this, Raphael? Why do we call him Papa? The Pope. I love that guy. He's so funny. Well, anyway, in case people are thinking, it's everywhere. It's official history. Everywhere you go to a museum, they're going to tell you that what you call it, all these things about ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, ancient Israel, everything was what happened. The main title.
The rediscovery of classical
They
antiquity.
rediscovered
Uh-huh.
it. We will rediscover some new civilization. I don't know. We'll just call it ancient Papaletics or something, or Papalia. People will say Papalia. Will say, don't you know? Papalia was the civilization of Gaza and Israel even before the Philistines came. People will believe it. You don't know. We'll pretend and find some manuscripts in caves, plant a few coins there. Don't worry. Yes, maybe these Arabs will get in the way, but we've got the Americans to support us. The Americans, Biden will make a phone call to Netanyahu and say, hey, they're working for Daddy, for Papa. Let them through. Let Raphael and David through. You see?
Oh yeah.
We'll be able to get through. So the thing is, let's see, and Pallas Athena, yes, in many of these so-called mysterious documents that they found during the Renaissance, what was Pallas Athena? This is from the Royal Collection Trust.
Still
Pallas
a
Athena,
warrior. Hmm.
warriors, the Philistines. Yes, yes, and mysteriously all this Renaissance of Pallas Athena and these Philistine and all these things were found in Italy. Oh, it's can you see this history now? They want to build a new temple. oh, the Renaissance spirits, we've got many paintings. Yes, so they will say it's Athena, but the goddess's full name is actually what? The painting shows who? Is it Athena or who does it show?
Pallas Athena.
Pallas Athena. Yes, a mythical creature. It didn't exist. They've invented this so that nobody will know that it's actually Palestine. That nobody will know that Rome was called Palestine, and we can't even find the city. We look through the streets and all the maps. There's only 200-300 buildings there inside Rome. Yes, population of 2,000-3,000 within the walls in the 16th century. So then they invented the name and they called it Rome. Yes, whereas Istanbul was Rome before then. Istanbul was Rome, and Jerusalem, the main Rome. So they invented it, and then they just took the name over there. This is in my books. Yes, explained clearly in case you're going to think, what's he talking about? If you've not read it, it's in the book Last Crusade and some other books. It goes through it. What do you call it? How they invented the name Byzantines. There was no Byzantines. They've invented this name. That they just took it over there, and it's in my books Skull and Bones in Poland. That you'll find all these churches. They killed the people. They decorated daddy's churches, the Pope's churches, with all these statues. And even in Vienna, yes, outside the Parliament building, I've been there, I've seen it myself. It's a beautiful, amazing building. We have a statue of who?
Oh yes,
Outside.
Pallas Athena. Yeah, welcome.
Yes, yes. So Palestine is not a small thing. And then the global domination, the warrior, the Philistine, the Vatican's warrior. Yes. And what they did, yes, is standing on a globe. Yes. It doesn't matter if it's a globe or flat. You fight about that yourself. But what do you call it? What do you call it? The main thing is, it's their idea to dominate the world. Yes. And what do you call it? Everybody has noticed that when the Renaissance writers wrote about these Pallas Athena or Athena the goddess and everybody else, what do we see? That even in their art, in their statues, and in their books, yes, what were these things? Mythical, mythological,
Classical myths in Italian Renaissance paintings. Visual artists realized
mythological.
several of the mythological allegories that were inventions by contemporary humanists.
They invented these things. Yes, humanists were working together with the Vatican. Yes, so they invented all these things. Yes, it's just a big joke and a big scam. Yes, and now when we have a look, when we go through dictionaries, yes, we have Firaun, Pharisee, the priest, the parish. Let's go through some of these. We'll see it in the European languages, that we'll know that this history in the Bible was actually in Europe. Yes, when we go to Italian, yes, what do we see? The Pharisees, the priests in the Bible, who are they? With the letter F, Pharisee. Yes,
Hmm.
and then we have the Farnese family. Who was the Pope? Or who was the daddy? Yeah, it was dad. Things like this and other things. So we have the Fari family, Farnese, Firaun. In Arabic, they say Firan. Yes, it's only in the Latin and the Greek where it comes to Pharisee that we get this modern Italian. So the Arabic looks like it was more like an original language here, because the Firan family, we can see it's actually called Firan. Yes. So the thing is, and he was daddy. Yeah, he was one of our first dads. Yes, and we find it. Just because in English we spell it with the P, English is not the main language from Latin. It's Italian and Spanish. The Spanish Inquisitions. Yeah, Seos. Yeah, or Pharisee. Yes, and then when we come to what do you call it? Yes, the Pharisee. Let's have a look. That we will notice how these English languages, Germanic languages, how they came. So the Pharisee. What is a Pharisee?
A fallacy?
Yeah, it's a lie. The word fallacy means lie, false. That's how we get the name en français. C'est faux, fausse. C'est pas vrai. False, fallacy,
Hmm.
Pharisee. You see? because the Pharisees were liars, that it entered the normal languages. Now, let's have a look even in the German languages. I got this ready because people don't check these small details. In German, fallacy, what is the German word for fallacy?
Fehlschluss
Yes, and the word for false?
ist falsch.
Yeah, the phallus, Palestine, the Pharisee. It was the Pharisees' army, the priests. They invented these stories and they're lying. So let's have a look. The Arabs say Palestine. Yes, they don't say Palestine, they say Palestine. Yes, like Pallas. So now let's compare it. Fallacy, false. Yes, what do you call it? And Palestine in German, what do you see? There is Irrtum as well, that's another version, but for false. And for Palestine, what is it in German?
Well, I'm not sure about the second one. So false is falsch. For Palestine here it says Palestine, but I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean in German.
Palestine. Yes. So the thing is, when we compare this, so we can see Phalas, Phalis, Paris, Paris, Pharisees, Phalis, Paris, Pharisees, Phalis, or the phallus, what they will say, you know, the human body part penis, or the Palestine. Yes, the goddess warrior with the penis. Are you beginning to see the Philistines?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
definitely. There's
European
the
history.
connection is made clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's European history. It's got nothing to do with these people over there. That place is not the Holy Land of the Bible or anything, the history of the Bible, that we can see it. That these words, Pharisee, Pharisee, Philistine, Palestine, Philistine, Palestine, whatever, whichever way you want to pronounce it, yes, yeah, it's just the same thing. And even in Eretz Israel, yes, on their website, eretzisrael.org, they will tell you the name Palestine that the Arabs use today for Palestine is not an Arabic name. It came
Hmm.
from the European languages, from Greco-Roman, Palestina. You see? It came from there. There was no Philistines there. There was nothing there. So a Hebrew website, a Jewish website is going to put it there, but they're killing their own theory. Yes, because they're claiming the Philistines were there. No, they weren't. They were in Europe. That place is not Israel. That place has got nothing to do with the Bible or the places mentioned in the Bible. In biblical history is actually European history. It doesn't belong to a small group of people over there. Are you beginning to see?
Hmm.
Yes. So the thing is, the word Palestine, yes, the Arabs pronounce it the same way like the Germans would. Yes. And the Germans, the Ottoman Germans, were fighting in that place, what we call Middle East Palestine in World War One, and the British defeated them. But when we have a look at many of the words, we will see the origin of these words. They're in European languages. Pharisee, Pharisee, Farusha, Parusha, Phariser, Prussia, Farsi, Farsi, and all these Farsi documents found in Europe and America. Parsi, Paris, fallacy, which is a lie in German. Yes, the German version is that. Then it's a farce, it's a joke. Pharaoh, false, parish church, Palestine, phallus, you know, and Philistines, palace, or the place because they had the central place, or the
Hmm.
Platz in German, you know, Palast
Yeah,
or the Platz,
right. Hmm.
Palestine. Everything shows that what you call it, these people who invented Christianity and Judaism, they arrived in the 15th, 16th century in this hill called Palestine Hill, what we today will call Palatine Hill in England, or in our mother languages, it's Palestine Hill, and that was where the Temple Mount was, where the um, quadrilateral temple was, yes, and it's Pallas Athena, and their troops and their army was called Palestine or the Philistines, yes, and they were fighting against Israel, which was on the east, and they took over the west, which was Judah. Yes, is it becoming a bit more obvious? Is it becoming a bit
Hmm.
more obvious what's going on? Yes, and when they took over this city in France, they called it Paris after them. And the thing is, when they started corrupting the Arabic language, which was in Europe, because we find all these Arabic coins throughout Europe. We don't even seem to find them throughout the Middle East. We can't find these Arabic manuscripts and books in the Middle East. We can't seem to find any of these ancient Qurans in Saudi Arabia. They're all in the US, Canada, Germany, France, Russia, Ireland, Italy, Spain, all these mysterious places in Europe. Yes, that Europe has got something to do with this Islamic history that we can't understand, that we don't know how to explain it. Yes, and then even when we open up the Psalms in the Bible, we will say Psalms, but they'll spell it with a P. Do they spell it with a P in German also?
Yeah. PS.
Yes, but nobody pronounces the P. They've done that on purpose so that you will not know. Yes, but in English, it's called Psalm. How do you pronounce it? Salam. In Russian, it's pronounced Salom without the P. Salom, Salom. So it came from the religion called Salom or Shalom. Yes, and last time we spoke about Selah, which is mentioned in the book called Salom, but they're claiming it's called Pasam. Yes, it's just an invention. And what do you call it? Yes, it's just an invention. And they're telling us they don't know what Selah means. Yes, so Selah, let me just show the etymology of they're telling us, they've made it so difficult so that people will see this in brackets, asterisks, slants, dashes, dots, how to pronounce the word salam, salams or psalms. It's actually salams, praises. Yes, you see? And it's not shaloms or shalams. You see? So the word salam and Islam, yeah, Islam is just a modern invention. It was always salam. Yes, that was the original religion even in Europe, and they had these prayers called salams. You see? You see? They had these prayers called salams, and then they will say, we don't know what salah means, even though it's there. Yes, and what they're going to say that the Muslims will insist all over the world that salah is a type of prayer or communication with God, but they're going to say maybe it means the word forever, or maybe it means pause, or a comma in a full stop, or maybe it means put your voice higher, or maybe it means put the instruments higher. What is this? Can you see? Maybe this, maybe indicates this. Ah, they just don't want to say Europe wasn't Christian. They invaded, they conquered. The Pope's army was the Philistines. They were the evil ones. They fought Judah. And they slowly took over all the principalities or all the cities. Many people don't know there was about 2,000 principalities in Europe. Do you know this? 2,000.
I didn't know it was that many, no?
It's that many. So they took over them all one by one. That's why Anatoly Fomenko says that there were schisms. Yes, all these people debating and fighting over what the word of God means. Salah, the second pillar of Islam. Some people will see it as a prayer. But the schisms it's like, for example, that's why I turned around and thought all these Quranists in modern day Islam, some of them want to comment and say, hey, for example, in the Quran, it says this. I'll give you an example of what it says. Yes? Yeah, it says that the Virgin Mary, yes, she turned around and says that no man has touched me. Yes? So now the thing is, when we have a look at this, when you turn around and say the statement, no man has touched me, and the Quran says this was the same story that the followers of Christ had. Now, when she says that no man has touched me, if you yes, it means no man has touched me. That clearly says virgin. Now, some people will say, oh, you could turn around and say, it means no man has touched me recently. It doesn't say recently. So now what Anatoly Fomenko says that there were schisms. I like the way he is so polite. Schisms, Anatoly Fomenko, he shows how the West became divided. Yes? What do you call it? And the thing is, he shows that that there was religious schisms in the West, and then from the east they had to invade, and Daddy was taking advantage, saying, "Divide and destroy, guys." Yeah, so he says there was all these religious schisms. Yes, it's because there was these people who were trying to make fame for themselves or get their followers or make money or bring people under control, that they turn around to define what was Mary. Was she a virgin or not? Yes, or was she just she wasn't married at the time, or was she divorced, or was her husband dead? So these things have been happened before. It's nothing new. These people caused a bloodbath in Europe. 7 Years' War, 30 Years' War, Black Deaths. Yes, by all these princes who brought slavery. And in Eastern European languages, Christian actually means slave. Yes, when Daddy took over all these people, Raphael, Daddy made so much money. He turned them all into slaves, all these people in Europe. They
Hmm.
weren't dumb, but he made them dumb. Daddy's very clever. Papa is so clever. We got to say this. Yes. So the thing is, that's why there are things in history that we can't prove anymore. Even scientifically, we don't know where the limit is. Is virgin birth possible or not? That it's so much that we don't even know what to say. Yes. Uh, Um, when it comes to this story, because we don't know if it's going to cause a bloodbath and fighting and things in our world that so many people worked hard for to build our current world. Why should we try to make a declaration saying that scripture in the Bible or the Quran says this or that when we don't have concrete evidence? When we have problems with 10% of the words, that nobody's opened up the hundreds and millions of pages of Arabic books in America and in Europe. Nobody has done that. They've separated the Persian Arabic, which is the Prussian Arabic, and they've separated the Ottoman Arabic, which or the Standard Arabic, which was in Russia, because throughout Russia we find all these Arabic coins. And last time I didn't make it clear. Yes, but the coins in Eastern Europe, there's many of them that we find that actually say there is no God but Allah, and Moses is the prophet of God. But what many historians do, yes, they will say it's not intentionally, but they will turn around and say, hey, these coins were minted in Europe, made in Europe. And they will say they were copies. No, they're made of gold. They're not copies. They're European coins. We can't find them in the Middle East. But these coins said there is no God but Allah, and Moses is the prophet of God in Arabic. But what they don't tell you is that these same coins, yes, what do you call it? Yes, these same coins, yes, at the bottom, at the top, or in one place they say there is no God but Allah, and Moses is the prophet of God, and they don't tell you that it actually says together that Muhammad is the messenger of God. That it shows that what do you call it? That Moses and Muhammad, their followers, were in Europe, and the Europeans were Muslims, and the Europeans followed Moses. And then when the Prophet Muhammad came, sometime during the Middle Ages, they accepted Muhammad. Like, have a look, these Khazar coins, so-called Khazar conspiracies, Khazar Jews dominating the world or whatever, and they were in Ukraine. What do these gold coins in Europe show, Raphael? What do they say?
Right, as you said, includes, but all, even the Khazar coins, all right, this is the new information, include both
No,
the,
no, no, not even it's not new. Wait, I can turn around and say this is a Chinese dollar just because I found it in China. It's not a Chinese dollar. It's American. It's a dollar. Yes, these are coins in Poland, in Ukraine, in Russia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. And they're saying that they're Khazars 1 minute. Next minute, they will say, no, they're Russians. Sometimes they will say they're Mongol coins. Sometimes they will say they're Abbasid coins from Iraq.
mm.
These coins that are in Eastern Europe, what do they say?
So they include both the phrase Muhammad Rasulullah at the top and Musa Rasulullah at the bottom. Hmm.
Yes, Rasulullah means is the prophet of God, or the messenger. Ras, this is where the name came from for Russia or Rus, and that's why they turned around and said there was the German Rus or the prophethood. Prophethood meant the office of the prophet, that they had the authority from God to be, like crowned, or with the Quran, or Quran meant, the recital of God, that they had the crown, that they were crowned in Germany, in Russia, that they received the Reich or the Rosh. That's where the word Russia come from. And then we have Irish or Rush. Yes. And so we have the German Reich. And then we have the Frankreich, the French Reich, or the
Hmm.
French Ross. Yes. In modern Arabic, they pronounce it Russ. Yes. So these coins, yes, some people will turn around and say they were Khazar coins, but other people will turn and say they're not Khazar coins. The thing is, have a look. 1 minute they've said they're Khazar coins. Now, if these coins are found in England, what do they say they are in England? Have a look here. So in Poland, they're going to say they're Khazar coins. What are they in England, by the way?
In England, they are from Viking England. Hmm.
Oh, they're Viking coins now. Oh, these coins that say that there is no God except Allah and Muhammad is the Ross, or the messenger of Allah. Yes, they're Viking coins now today. You see? So it depends on what they want to say.
Right.
They're going, oh, so now these Khazars, do you think they were Buddhists or were they Muslims? Choose one.
Well, now I'd say Muslim.
Oh, but then you, people, I don't know how people can't see through this history straight away. In magazines,
Of
these
course, this is a very
historians will say,
popular, even let's say, a conspiracy story about the Khazars being original Jews or whatever. Yeah. Hmm.
oh, yeah, you read it. I've just sent it to you.
Yes.
Read the
So
second sentence.
in
The
the
Khazars and
eight
their rulers were what?
in the 830s, coins were minted in, here it says, in Khazaria, bearing the Arabic text. Khazars and their rulers were Jewish, but had become Jewish only recently. Hmm.
So if they were Jewish, why do they have Muhammad is the prophet of
Yeah,
Allah?
of
And
course,
why are they
makes no
using
sense.
Arabic?
Hmm.
Did they mysteriously forget to use Hebrew? Or did Hebrew not exist back then? So we can see they're just teaching a lot of garbage, and we can clearly see that what you call it, that in Northern Europe they had Arabic coins. These people were clearly the followers of Muhammad. Then they separated all these families and children, everything in the 17th, 18th, to 19th century. That's in my book, Orphan Trains. If you read it, then you will see what they did to your ancestors in Europe. You could be sitting in England and thinking, hey, my ancestors are English. Yes, but half the people in England, more than the majority, couldn't even speak English 100 years ago. Yes, before the year 1900. They learnt English in schools. I'm going to have to go through this next time, and people will think, oh, damn. Yes, where did they find all these orphans and children to do all the work in the mining? People aren't asking these questions. Now, the moment you ask these questions and you go through the evidence, then you will turn on and you will realize, damn, Europe had an Islamic civilization. The Bible is the history of Islam. Yes, and I put this in my book. I've described it in my books that the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, is actually in Arabic. Yes, but they've just put a different font handwriting. If anybody uses Microsoft Word, you can use different fonts. Your handwriting is not the same as mine. So that's all they've done. They've changed the fonts. Then they invented the dictionaries, and they've just put different meanings here and there, and they've mixed modern Hebrew to make it a bit separate from modern Arabic by up to about 30 or 40%. Some people say it could be higher or less. It depends on your opinion. So that's what they've deliberately done. So now the thing is, if we want to understand history, yes, we are going to have to look at the Quran. And the Quran, the biggest group of Muslims are called the Sunnis or the Sunnis. And mysteriously, we have these Sunnis, yes, who left Europe to go live in the deserts. Yes, we've got them there. And the thing is, they've preserved a tradition that's several centuries old. Yes. And the thing is, they sound like the Essenes. And these Essenes are these Sunnis who followed the light or the way of God. Yes. From what history I can see, from Josephus, Pliny, and Philo, I mentioned last time, they existed before the Prophet Muhammad and before Jesus Christ. So they seem to have a very old way, and many of these things are found in many religions. But the thing is, if we want to get to the bottom of history, um, we're going to have to take another look at the Quran and another look at Islam. Even I'm intrigued by it, that the more I look at this, yes, the more I'm beginning to understand that many times, yeah, I've even thought, hey, flamenco, this, that. Like, he doesn't mention the Philistines like the way I've mentioned it here.
Hmm.
But he must have clearly known, because he was mentioning the other major points that he thought that was major. But for me, I find this, you know, Palestine, that Rome was like the first Palestine that they set up. Then they set up all these other Palestines or Palatines throughout Europe, in Poland, in Germany, in France, in Spain, in Italy, all these principalities. There was more than 2,000 of them. And the thing is, it's because, as Fomenko described, the children of Israel and the conquest of Western Europe, yes, was the so-called barbarian invasion, and then they took over, and then the children of Israel, as they divided the lands, yes, there became more principalities, because if you have three, four, five children, you divide it between your sons and things like this, and then in the end, that's why the Quran talks about the story of the children of Israel. It clearly mentions the children of Israel and things like this in a more deeper context than how the Bible does. The Bible, they've repeated many of the events, but it's clear that the Philistines are these European soldiers, and they were, of course, same like you could turn around and say the European armies are part of NATO. But of course, when Britain invaded the Falklands, that wasn't NATO. That was just England on its own. Yes, and Turkey's part of NATO. But when Turkey, bombs, Syria, and they're saying there's Kurdish militia there, that's not NATO. That's Turkey doing it. Yes, and when Poland supplies weapons to Ukraine, that's not NATO, but that's Poland supplying weapons there. So the thing is that these individual Philistine armies, they had their individual things, but the main Philistine army in the Bible that fought against Israel and Judah was actually the Vatican. Any questions, Raphael, or is this absolutely clear? Are you beginning to really understand more of his European history as we go along? Are you beginning to see it now?
Well, definitely learning more and more, going step by step. It always takes me some time to then.
Compared to before you met me, let's say 2 years ago, you would be a genius by now. You should have unraveled world history by now a lot more compared to 2 years ago. Yes?
Well, in comparison, definitely, and that's why we've been doing so many presentations, because I realized there's something relevant you have to share, and there's something to learn,
Yeah,
and
it's
most
scary. The thing is,
importantly,
I'm not going.
there's many
Yeah.
common assumptions where you give just a very good model and explanations that just make a lot more sense than whatever BS we've been fed, which
Well, the
obviously
proof is
was
there.
lacking.
It's like I've shared the Google things so that people can open the links. Of course, there's some dumb monkey out there who turned and said he's just putting the Google there. I'm putting it there so that people can go out there and read these things. I've already read these things. That's how I know what's in these websites. That's how I know what's in these books. Yes. So the thing is, people can do some research. I'm not just making a 2-hour video so that somebody listens to it having a pizza or something and having a burger or something just sat there. I'm doing it so that people can realize and see. Yes, because if we don't know the past, we don't know who we are. We don't even know why we're alive. Yeah, these things are not a joke. Yes, and there's people in power who are playing with us. Yes, so the thing is, I put these things there. I hope it makes people realize who they might be and where we came from and where our past was. And unfortunately, the more we look towards this, the more that we can see that the world had an Islamic civilization, as Professor Henry Atlan shows, and they were fighting against the Vatican, or what is known as Christianity, which today is known as the New World Order. That's what Professor Henry Atlan found. That's what I found. And that's a similar thing what Professor Anatoly Fomenko found, that original Christianity was Islam and original Islam was Christianity. They were the same religion. and then they divided by the schemes of the Vatican and its allies as they marched all over Europe. Yes, they invented Catholicism. They invented the fake history of the Protestant religions. There was nothing there. Now, here it is again. Professor Henry Atlan is from a Jewish background. Yes, and he's saying it himself. Yes, that I put the major quote there. And he's saying Judaism is not chronologically the first monotheistic religion, but in fact the third. It was instituted, created, and invented and set up as a system during the Middle Ages. Following means after. It was created after Christianity and Islam, and it was created in reaction against these two religions. Who created it and why? It looks clear that they created it as an alternative to Islam because Christianity, the Pope or Daddy, couldn't defeat Islam.
Hmm.
You see that the thing is, when most people have read the Bible, yes, throughout Europe, yes, when they read it, yes, in the 20th century, they thought, damn, what the hell is this? People are laughing at it. It's a joke. Yes, same like modern Islam, they're turning around saying the Prophet Muhammad married a kid, a 6-year-old kid. People are laughing. It's a joke. It's a joke. Now, some people are going to say girls reach puberty at age 6. Come on. Yes. So the thing is, they put these books there. We can see the evidence in the Middle East that people couldn't even read or write. And this modern Arabic, yes, even today they don't speak this language. It's not their language. And we find millions of pages of manuscripts throughout Europe and America with this Arabic writing that was written by Europeans. It's in Europe. Yeah. And the people over there don't even speak it. And then what we find is in many of these old Germanic languages, when I say Germanic means from Spain all the way to, Ukraine, or what is the old Holy Roman Empire, that we can find these Arabic words there. And then we find some new version of Arabic mysteriously turn up called Farsi or Persian Arabic. Yes, this is the other one where the Vatican influenced and many things started to change. But the old original Arabic is the Ottoman Arabic that before the British invasion of Egypt, yes, the people knew Ottoman Arabic. Yes, Ottoman Arabic it was in Europe, and as Didier Lacapelle rightly pointed out, a few centuries ago, the current Turks were in Romania. Yes, they were even in Europe. Yes, in Southern Europe, in the Balkans, Eastern Europe. So the thing is, and they must have migrated south with the invasions, with the Russian army and the German army. They didn't have the capability to take over this Byzantine Judah, yes, or Eastern Roman Empire. No chance that the Vatican took over when they were based in Cairo, that they took over Jerusalem, and this is where the exile story is, or the story of Ezra. Yes, yeah, that Didier Lacapelle points this out about Ezra and Uzair. Yes, and the Muslims have pointed this out, that it's in the Quran where they declared Osiris or Osiris, who is Ezra, as the son of God. Now, this is in my book, The Matrix Codes. I've gone into detail into this. Now, if you haven't read it, then you won't know this story. That this story, yes, is found in the Quran, which they're claiming is from ancient Egypt thousands of years ago. But the thing is, it's found in the Quran and in Egypt, and Professor Flamenco shows it's from the Middle Ages. If you haven't read Matrix Codes, then you won't be able to figure it out. And from there, and the story in the Bible of Ezra, and Babylon and Jerusalem, and Babylon is Cairo, and Jerusalem would have been Istanbul at that time, the biblical main Jerusalem. And this means that Jerusalem is not in that place in the Middle East. They're killing people for no reason. Yes, you know what I mean. Yes, and they're inventing it. And if you're dreaming of an Armageddon, why you want to destroy our current civilization? Yes. Well, let's leave it at that, Raphael. Any questions or anything you couldn't clearly understand about the Philistines? Or is it absolutely clear to you?
Well, I think the base connection you wanted to make is you made it very clear. And everything else,
Yeah.
I'll always have to revisit your presentations and then,
Of
slowly
course,
build up
of
the
course.
image in
That's
my
why I sent
mind.
you the links.
Yes, of course,
Uh,
of course.
uh,
Yes, and this is the
It
whole
took me
idea
years
also to
to do
everyone
this.
listening to make your own research. be aware of new information you get, to be able to understand more what could be,
Yeah.
more of a forgery, where could be truth, or what is an anomaly that now makes more sense with David's explanation. And then most importantly, which is what it's about for you, I guess, as well, is act accordingly. So if I know certain things, are just stories created to make people hate each other, not believe in these stories, not support these
It's not worth it.
organizations, it's simple
Yeah,
enough what we can do.
because if we're going to make a statement and it's wrong, and we're going to make a public statement, we have to think how many people it's going to influence. There could be one man out there, and 20 years later, he forms his, he has his own channel, and he has 1 million followers, and that's it. It's a new religion. Yes. So, and the thing is, and then his followers will fight somebody else. Things like this that we have to be careful. The thing is, that's why I've turned around and said I don't want to bring religion into it. Please, if you're an evangelist or an Islamist, please stop watching my things. Stop watching these things, because in the back of your head, you're trying to justify your religion or your religion's official history. Yes, you're trying to justify it, and this official history is causing pain and wars. Can't you look around? Yes, Armenia has just had 150 to 100,000 people from Karabakh that's just had to go. Can't you see what's going on with the Alawites in Syria? Can't you see what happened to the Mormons in America? How they were persecuted? Yes, things like this. Can't you see what happened to Buddhists in many places in Southeast Asia, or what happened to the Rohingyas because they were Muslims, or what happened to many Hindus in Pakistan. Yes, many of them, we hear stories of people getting raped, tortured, burnt alive. Yes, and then many Muslims in India on the other side, we hear Hindus getting things like this. I mean, is it worth it? That's why, yes, when we study history and we're going through something, yes, it's better to just leave it at history instead of turning it political or religious. It's not worth it. Why do we want to destroy a beautiful world that we will build today, and then somebody else could destroy tomorrow because of the mistakes that we make? Yes, because of those mistakes, because of the story of the Philistines and the so-called Temple Mount, yes, and things like this. People are ready to kill each other over this. It's not worth it. What's worth more, a temple or a person? What's wrong with us today? That we don't seem to value human life, and we think, no, my opinion or my history and my religion, no, it's worth more. Something is wrong there. Something is wrong there. You see?
Indeed.
Okay, Raphael, any questions, or shall we leave it at that?
We'll leave it at that for now. As always, as I like to say, thanks everyone for listening. Kindly, constructive comments and questions, put them there. And there's too many questions, I guess, overall, but you, I think, do a really great job of walking through things step by step, and in this way, a complete picture can emerge. That makes so far a lot
Oh,
more
that's
sense.
why I gave the links, Raphael, a
Yes,
main
of
point.
course, of course.
That's why I gave the links. It means that people should go out and check the links and other links, and then check the official history and compare it, and then see it, and then they will see it in their mind. Like they told us about September the 11th. They told us about weapons of mass destruction. They've been making wars. They're telling us many different stories, and then people are making money, the scams, religious scams, political scams. It's a business. People are profiting from it. So the purpose of the links is for you to study and go out there. Like there was one idiot last time. I turned on and put a link for the Dead Sea Scrolls that in some museums they're forgeries. It doesn't mean just focus on one link. It means go and do your own research, you lazy, that person's pathetic. Yes, don't even want to say what type of a species they come from.
Well, the
Yes,
internet is famous for trolls. I'm not calling anyone a troll, but I'm just saying, we're in the wild here, so all kinds of
yeah.
different
Yeah,
different
because I
attitudes
even
and
said it
people
in
emerge.
several videos that there's more information in my books, Flamenco's books, and you should go and check other links and everything. And by the way, Yes, everything I've said, I've left question marks open because we don't know the full story. Like there's some people trying to declare that the Virgin Mary wasn't a virgin based on biblical documents and Islamic documents. It's because they both turn around and say that no man has touched her. And some people are saying this does not mean a virgin. If no man has touched a girl, that to me means a virgin. If somebody turns around and says, hey, this is brand new, nobody's touched it, what does that mean, Raphael? Does this mean it's a second-hand mobile? Or if I turn around and say, this is a brand new mobile, nobody's touched it, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, should be new.
It's a virgin mobile. Yes. So now there's many people who are trying to interpret and say that these biblical documents does not say this. Now, the documents say this. Now, if we're going to turn around and ask the question, is virgin birth possible? Now, I mentioned this before. If somebody walks around today and says, hey, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby, but no man has ever touched me, I'm a virgin, nobody's going to believe it. Now, the thing is, now the story of Jesus Christ, people were fighting for Christ. They believed it so much. So the story, according to the Quran anyway, and some Gnostic Gospels, turn around and say that Christ was talking while he was a baby, just after he's born. And that was enough evidence for people to know that, what do you call it? Yes, that he was special. You see, that people believed it then. It was enough that people that on the left and on the right, all from all sections, that they wrote during the Middle Ages that the Virgin Mary, no man has touched her, or simply she's a virgin. You see? Now the thing is, the way people were fighting at that time over any statements, yes, don't you think the Vatican would have tried to say no, she wasn't a virgin? They would have tried.
Mm.
Yes. And many people are trying today. Yeah, it's big business. Religion is a business. So now the thing is, because we cannot go back, you know, many centuries ago, we can't go to visit the Virgin Mary. We cannot conduct scientific independent tests. We cannot verify it or not verify this story. Now, based on the evidence from many paintings in gold, even in Europe, that have Arabic writing on, yes, shows that the Virgin Mary, yes, was a virgin, or that no man has touched her. Yes, like no man has touched this mobile, it's a virgin mobile. Now, there are many people who are trying to bring me into a topic to open up this topic. I'm not going to open it up because I can't find no evidence regarding this matter from that time. Now, some people will say the Bible or the Quran, maybe they've made a mistranslation on this issue. Hey, history doesn't evolve on two manuscripts, the Bible and the Quran. There are hundreds of other manuscripts, paintings, and drawings that when you consider all this evidence, all the evidence shows that the Virgin Mary was a virgin and no man has touched her. I'm not going to go off just one document. Yes, that somebody will say, hey, this is my biblical document, I'm an evangelist, I only go from this. Or this is my Quran Islamist document, I'm a Quranist, this is the only document I'm going to go off. By the way, the Bible and the Quran does not mention the history of Ivory Coast. It doesn't mention the history of Bolivia. What are you going to say to Bolivians, Mr. Evangelist or Mr. Quranist? They can't. These people are pathetic. Yes, that they don't want to use their eyes, ears, or common sense and think history. You have to look at all the angles. We cannot just turn around and say, my God says this, my God says this. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John said this, or chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah in the Quran says this. Yes, and then they'll say, "Oh, I didn't realize what you call it, the dictionaries have got a flaw in them and many other things." So I'm not willing to get into these religious debates or other things. No, thank you. Very sorry. Yes, these schisms, Anatoly Fomenko has even said it. I'm saying it, that they caused all these wars and everything, and that's how Europe, or if you want to call it Tataria or the old world order, collapsed and the Vatican took over. And they've set up a new world order. Carry on paying your taxes. Yeah, you'll be microchipped soon. It's a matter of time. Yes, on the internet, you already know that it's only their websites that turn up. Even if you press a search button in YouTube, it won't search those exact words. It used to 10 years ago. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Right.
They will put their own search things. Yes, yeah. So the thing is, carry on, with your pathetic things and arguing and whatever. Yes, and the thing is saying, hey, my religion says this and that. It doesn't. Then there was this Islamist guy who was turning around and saying he's trying to destroy our Sunni Islam. If I was trying to destroy it, I've proved something that you Muslims failed. Yes? Well, I've proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Sunni Islam or Essene, the way of God or the light of God, existed before the Prophet Muhammad, and the Quran says this. This doesn't mean I'm trying to prove the Quran. It's because I found it, very shocking that the Essenes they're saying disappeared 2,000 years ago. I find it shocking. Same story. The Philistines disappeared 2,000 years ago, Raphael. Same crap.
Everything
Can you see the
disappeared
same
2,000
story?
years ago.
Yes, the same crap. Yes, whereas we can find them in the Middle Ages and all up to the 17th, 18th century. These Palestinians or Philistine soldiers and these things, they're there. And then, now they're going to say, oh, Palatine is just one or two districts in East and West, central parts of West Germany and in East Germany and things like this. Just some fake history. Poland, Palestine, they're using the same process to take over the Middle East now. When they've controlled the Middle East, yes, then that's it. Yes, goodbye to us guys in Europe and America. Yeah, they're going to totally put their total fake history, everything, and you won't find any of the history because there's nobody there to challenge them. Yeah, right now there is the Muslim history, and the Quran is just a basic summary of that history. And I find no faults in that history. Um, the thing is, it's a summary. That's all it is. And biblical history, I don't find a major fault in it. I find the Old Testament, it's amazing. The story of the Philistines and all these things and the prophets. It's an amazing book. Yes, they've lied and they've added their additions and other deletions. Now, I don't like it when Muslims try to discredit the Bible and talk about it like that, the Old Testament. Some of these guys who are coming and commenting, they've never even read the Old Testament. These pathetic idiots. They've never even read it or done a study. And if they haven't done a study of the history of Europe or Christendom, what we call, that they can even compare this history, and they're just coming out and denouncing it and this, that, whatever. I just find it pathetic. Religious wise, I denounce the Old Testament as a religious book. Yes, but that's because I provide the evidence and I provide the arguments, and I've written my theses on it, like doctorate theses, my books. I presented my evidence, and I even quote these things. But some of these people who are coming out, and even on the evangelical Christian side, who are coming out discrediting the Quran, this, that, claiming this is from the Islam. Do they even realize they're sitting in Europe and America, that in every city we've got these Arabic books, Arabic civilization, that nobody spoke English, French, German, Russian, Polish, Bulgarian, Greek, Italian, Spanish? We didn't speak these languages in our European lands just over 100 years ago or 150, 200 years ago. They've invented the history. Yes? So the thing is, on the other side, people have to calm down. They shouldn't look down on Western history. And in the West, we shouldn't look down on the Eastern history. We have to look at it both. And that's where we'll find an equilibrium, and we'll suddenly wake up and think, damn, this is actual history. And that's when we can turn around and maybe figure out who we are, why we're alive, and where we're going, and what was our original history. Now, let's definitely leave it at that. No more questions, Raphael. No more
Let's do
points.
that. I
Okay?
have the same questions as you, and I'm very much looking forward to those answers, and hopefully, all together by everybody sharing and being
Yeah.
respectful to each other and loving
Yes.
and all of that, we'll get there. So
Yes.
thank you so much, David.
Okay. Good evening, Raphael.